Welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. Very excited to be back doing the June 2022 horoscopes. This is going to be a very eventful month, to say the least. So hopefully you guys are doing well. Those of you guys who are new to my channel, welcome. I am a Western and evolutionary astrologer with an emphasis on integrating esoteric kind of interpretations, clairvoyant interpretations, and tarot into my reading. So it's a bit of a triple threat. Do me a favor, click the subscription button below if you'd like to be alerted as to when I have new videos coming out on my channel. I generally have a weekly show that I do on Sunday mornings. That's going to be all of the astrological weather for the week ahead, along with new and full moon videos that I do. So at the end of every month, I do a monthly overview for all of the transits. That's more general. I also do a video that is for all of the horoscopes for each and every one of the 12 signs. So that's what this is going to be. Do me a favor and also leave me a comment below. Give me a thumbs up. Let me know, what are you excited for in the month of June? How are these energies impacting you? All right, so let's go ahead and get into the slideshow for June 2022 horoscopes for all 12 zodiac signs. So I just want you guys to be aware that this is going to be a month where things are going to pick up rather quickly. We've got a lot of energy happening in the sign of Aries as well as Gemini, and you're watching this probably just coming off of the new moon in Gemini. Well, transits that catch my eye for the month. These are not all of the transits, obviously. These are just going to be the ones that I'm going to be talking about that specifically relate to your sign. So when I go through it sign by sign, I'm going to talk to you about the dates, where in your life these transits are taking place, and what you might expect. So this might be a little bit of a review for those of you guys who already saw my June month ahead video. So the month kicks off with June 3rd. Mercury goes direct in Gemini. Mercury retrograde. Mercury goes direct. It's been a retrograde that actually started in Gemini. It went retrograde back into Taurus, and then it went direct, or will be going direct on June 3rd. So when it stations direct, it's going to be in the sign of Taurus. You want to reflect on what's been happening over the last 3.5 or so weeks in your life. Mercury has made several big aspects to outer planets, both several trines to Pluto and Capricorn, helping us dig deep, think about long-term goal planning, especially when it comes to our resources, our finances, or our career, and where our power lies. Now, Mercury also came into a square with Saturn in Aquarius, and we have seen this as mental limitations, challenging conversations, feeling limited in a sense of travel or our ability to share information with other people. There's been a real meeting of the minds with this square, and we're realizing that our beliefs, our values, our ideas, or maybe even our timing has kind of hit some roadblocks, and there's been a need to kind of reevaluate. The bottom line is that when Mercury goes direct, it's no longer having this really kind of staticky effect. And I'm really liking the days after it goes direct because it's going to make one more trine to Pluto and Capricorn. So it's really, really going to be beneficial if you're somebody who's like a stickler. If you like to wait until after the Mercury retrograde or until Mercury goes direct to sign leases, buy cars, move, book travel, this is the day that you're looking for. Now be mindful that when it stations, it will still spend several days in a square to Saturn. And it can be helpful waiting until Mercury actually comes out of shadow, somewhere around mid-June, going into the third week of June, if you have that time to wait. Obviously, a retrograde, though, we want to review and revise things, and we want to kind of go back, especially, I think, you know, this retrograde from Gemini to Taurus is about changing our mind, right? Changing our mind, shifting gears, breaking things down, taking things apart, and also possibly considering a second path or a second option. So I think that I would stay open for that and realize that, you know, just it going back into Gemini, which is the sign that you know, the planet is ruled, excuse me, such a Mercury retrograde moment. The sign Gemini is ruled by Mercury. So getting it out of Taurus, where it can be a little slow and sluggish, and getting it back into its ruling sign can be really helpful, especially when we start seeing it sextiling Jupiter in Aries. So as June goes on, planning, communication, all these things are going to get so much easier. Then I've got June 4th, and that's going to be Saturn going retrograde in the sign of Aquarius. Now, it'll be retrograde from the 4th until about October 23rd, 2022. Now, when Saturn goes retrograde, there is going to be a need to turn inward, reflect, plan, prepare, really reevaluate what we've been working towards, what goals we've been working towards. And it can be a wonderful time to kind of like actually go back and start integrating some of the stuff that we've been working on. Has not been an easy year because we have seen squares and conjunctions to Saturn. I think back to, earlier in 2022, February, March, when a whole slew of planets came into conjunction with Saturn that really required us to get serious about our plans for the future. Just recently, with this eclipse cycle that we had in Scorpio and Taurus, along with this Mercury retrograde, all of these planets have been squaring each other, right? We had eclipses that were square Saturn, and we are also going to see in the retrograde path, as Saturn retrogrades backwards, we're going to start to see it square off with Uranus and Taurus again. So it's going to bring up that whole need to pivot past and how we've done things in the past, and previous structures or long-standing kind of goals needing to be reevaluated, and us needing to kind of change things up, the volume getting turned up really high, the tempo kind of suddenly kind of skipping and moving forward as Uranus forms squares with Saturn later in the year. So it reminds me a lot of what was happening last year. I feel like on one hand, because Saturn can be a planet that deals with reward if you're willing to put in the work, it's important to remember that just because things might seem like they're calming down or they're getting a little bit easier, we don't want to lose sight of our goals, right? We don't want to get lazy. We don't want to fall back into old patterns. It's almost like, the boss is going to be away from the office for a week. Are we going to continue on with the scheduled plans that we have? Do we kind of stick to routine? Do we maintain our formation, or do we kind of screw off and not get our work done? Now, one thing I'll tell you guys is if this is something that you're doing, when we get to the fall this year, when we start to see that Saturn and Uranus are coming back into squares, the return of the fixed eclipses in Scorpio and Taurus, it's going to be harder to adapt and to adjust. And that's part of my job, is to tell you guys about what's coming. So even though it might feel like the pressure lets up a little bit, I would say do not skip a beat, continue moving forward, really stay committed to your goals, and really look at where Saturn is in your chart. So it's going to be Aquarius. Now, when Saturn turns retrograde, I think that we're also going to notice like global shifts. I think that maybe things that have been kind of put in motion may start being applied. So I think of like Saturn and Aquarius being social limitation. It can also be about technology. It can be about what's going on in politics. So a lot of these topics that have been swirling, there's a ton of them. The news is really crazy right now. We will start to begin to see, okay, what's been kind of laid out behind the scenes and what's actually going to be implemented over the next couple of months. I'm having a keen interest on the end of July going into August for some of these turning points where there's going to be some shocks revolving around some more limitations that are coming in the world, some shortages, some delays. And I'm also anticipating this in October going into November. So just be mindful that it ain't over, especially because Saturn is still in the later degrees of Aquarius. On June 11th, we've got Venus conjunct Uranus and Taurus. And this is very important because the North Node is in Taurus, so it's ruled by Venus. It's all about what feels good. It's about indulgence. It's about pleasure. And when Venus rubs up against unconventional Uranus, we see lots of shocking and surprising things happen, both in relationships as well as financial shifts. For some people, it can feel like hitting the lottery, money falls out of the sky. For other people, it can be really shocking kind of events that come about, especially in regards to their own personal banking or finance. So that's something that you want to be mindful of. Obviously, we're going to talk about where it lands in your chart, but I also see this as like a time where like somebody will come out and do something very outlandish, in their relationship life. Maybe they will strike out and need a little bit more freedom. Maybe there is a sense of doing something different for date night, and maybe doing something that's like a little bit more loud, right? Like pops of color. It can also be about making big changes in their personal preferences with like food. So because Taurus rules food, it also rules our own personal pleasure. We're going to see headlines revolving around shocking events about, you know, food and what we have and what we don't have, what we can start growing, what we can start creating in labs. I also think that we're going to see just lots of like shifts in regards to our value system on a personal level. It's like, here, try this. Do you like the way this tastes? No, I don't like this. Well, I really do. That kind of stuff. And lots of new, I think, upgrades when it comes to the beauty industry as well. I think of like Taurus being about what's beautiful in a more natural way. So we're going to be redefining beauty. We're going to be redefining our values, and yeah, just lots of shakeups with money and relationships is what I'm anticipating with this conjunction. And I think a lot of individuals also are going to be really reevaluating, do I value this? Do I want to keep spending money on this? Does it make sense for me to putting all my money into this? And as Venus conjuncts the North Node, it's very important because we're supposed to be reflecting on what we do find attractive or beautiful. We also want to be really focusing on where Venus goes from there, because we're going to see Venus conjunct Uranus, so it's this shocking sudden turn of events. Then we're going to see Venus conjunct the North Node on the 16th of June, where we are kind of bouncing back maybe from whatever that kind of shocking event that happened, or that twist and change with resources or a relationship several days prior. Now, Venus on the North Node, I think, is really important because the North Node is where we aim to go. So whether you're having this in a transit, everybody's going to experience this, or you're having, you know, you have like a North Node natal placement. This talks about the emphasis of wanting and needing to achieve that. So pay attention to what's going on the 16th, add a little bit more love, sweetness to your life, really make the focus on working towards security, working towards your ability to provide and have something sustainable, but also be enjoying it in the process. And it's something that should be natural and come natural to you. We may find that there's a need to like simplify to be able to achieve that goal. With Venus on the North Node, I think of like, you know, having a spoonful of honey and fresh flowers and a face mask, and maybe having a picnic outside in the grass, like things that we take for granted that we really love doing. And that's just like a really easy kind of simple way of being able to get in tune with our senses, but also being able to connect with nature. Good wine, good food, good music, you know, all that stuff that Taurus loves. Now on the 18th, we're going to see Venus in Taurus, then square Saturn in Aquarius. So it's kind of a funky period of time from from June 11th through about June 18th, that whole week. It's like, okay, I'm doing this now. And then a couple days later on the 16th, it's like, yeah, this feels good. I think I could get used to this. And then we see Venus and Taurus come into a square with Saturn in Aquarius. Very interesting because both of these planets are in their domicile, right? So, you know, obviously, Taurus is ruled by Venus. Saturn is the ruler of Aquarius, the traditional ruler. So watching these two kind of square off in a very strong angle, and also being in very strong placements, it's a quick moving transit. I think there can be this sense of learning that we can't overdo it, learning that we can't overly indulge, learning that we can't hoard, that we can't be so fixated on what we need that we're willing to let that override what other people need. And I think just on a personal level, for me, it's been this realization that's like, do I have to have this relationship with money? Do I have to buy into this idea that life is literally just about working, making a paycheck, and being able to afford a lifestyle, and then just eat, sleep, and repeat? And what do you do to break out of that cycle? Like, how do you become more resourceful? How do you start restructuring your life and your value system and what you spend money on, so you can have more of that kind of North Node in Taurus experience? I do think that this is going to play collectively in a sense of what individuals have and possess versus what other people need. So this will also materialize as like lots of people bartering, or there's going to be opportunities to be like, I need this and you need that, so let's work together, right? To be able to overcome some of these challenges that are going on in the world and economically, especially when it comes to what we're paying for resources. So we start seeing people moving and working together. I'm wondering if it's like more farmers markets, more people bringing stuff out locally, more people learning how to bake their own bread, make their own soap, do things so that way they can be able to feel more secure and not feel like they're very limited, especially when it comes to larger businesses. This is going to be a long-standing conversation. I think it's safe to say, like, over the last decade or so, just with how we have changed making purchases, and it's so easy to just hit click and buy something online and then have it show up at our doorstep, we have lost the sense of being able to connect with local, creators, artists, artisan bakers, all these people, right? And I think that it's become extremely convenient. And then throughout the transition with the pandemic, many major corporations really have just done nothing but totally dominate, everything that's going on in the retail market. So mom and pop shops are a lot more difficult to find. Smaller businesses are really struggling because they're not getting some of the kind of kickbacks and the support that big business is getting. So for me, and I'm not saying this is what we should be doing, but for me, knowing that, I have 4 planets in the second house, I know that I'm a consumer. I also know that my money and my resources are powerful. I'm trying to be more mindful of how I use them. And it's kind of brought up this like back and forth that's like, well, does it make sense for me to commit to a year for only buying stuff locally? Going to a butcher, going to a farmer's market, not buying stuff that I need, like clothes or random objects and things like that, specifically from a big retailer like Amazon, like Walmart. What kind of an impact could I make if I made the decision not to have stuff shipped to my house? What if I made the decision to make my own cleaning products or possibly make my own beauty products? How would that affect me and my self-esteem? These are the things that are kind of coming up for me right now. So, it's going to be different for everybody, but I think it's a good example because anybody who has a lot of fixed placements are really feeling that crunch of, I need it, but do I really need it? And who am I without all of that stuff? And can I do it myself? So maybe some of you guys are going to be having some of the same conversations. Just be mindful that from June 11th through the 18th, there is this upgrade with what's going on with Venus in the North Node. It's different. And we're going to feel also the limiting and like the kind of sweet and salty aspects with the square to Saturn in Aquarius, where we have to value something so much that we're willing to stand apart from the crowd, right? So then on June the 20th, we have Mercury in Gemini coming into a sextile with Jupiter in Aries again. So we've seen this happen several times. A sextile is a Venus aspect. It's sweet. They're whispering to one another. So there is a need to really reflect on the last couple of times that we saw this transit. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go and watch my June 2020. I give you all the dates for that. But basically, this is now with Mercury direct. So now that Mercury is direct, it's like, I am really looking forward to signing contracts, making agreements, making statements, continuing to start new things, launching new projects around the 20th, because I feel like that's going to be exciting news that comes very quickly. We look at Jupiter in Aries, which is about the expansion of the individual, what we're learning, what we believe in, getting really fired up about the direction that we're going in our life, whether that's where we're traveling, what courses we're taking, what new techniques we're using, and learning how to be more independent. Now, while that sextile is with Mercury direct, Mercury is going to be saying, let's go, let's learn it, let's have the conversation, let's go and connect with people in our local environment, place the phone call, create the email, send the text message. So it's very active, right? And we've seen as Jupiter and Mars entered into Aries, several sextiles with Gemini. We saw it with Mercury several times. We saw it with the Sun. So I'm really excited to see this Mercury-Jupiter sextile again, because I feel like this is when it's going to stick. So for a lot of us, it's going to materialize as very exciting conversations about what we're learning or what we're starting. Then on the 27th of the month, we're going to see Mars in Aries come into a sextile with Saturn in Aquarius. Love it. I'm really liking this energy. To me, it feels like finally things are starting to make sense. all of the action and the desire and the passion and the movement and the motivation that we've had with Mars and Aries, where we have been initiating something new for ourselves. We're holding ourselves accountable for making headway, right? It's like really seizing the moment, especially with Jupiter being in there. But Mars with the sextile to Saturn, Mars is this very young, passionate, driven energy, and Saturn is like laying the cement for the foundation. So it's allowing us to take from all the lessons that we've had with the aspects to Saturn and then start something new. So it's a lot of like, what have we learned? What have we learned about the last like year? What have we learned since 2020? You know, I think a lot of people were just assuming that the world was going to go back to normal, things were going to get easy, and that we were just going to go back to like 2017, 18, and 19 again. And I think what we're realizing now with this sextile between Mars and Saturn is that we can't keep waiting for things to change. We have to take our own sense of, you know, motivation, pride, desire, and start really being able to build towards the future. So when Mars and Saturn are in the sextile, Saturn is basically giving Mars the green light to go and start something, to initiate something, to have something be followed through. And this is going to be happening globally, right? So it's about our relationship with the outer world. It's not so much what we think about. It's not so much about our interaction with our families or even our coworkers. It's more about what we're doing out there, right? Later degrees of Aries. So that sextile is determination, commitment, seriousness, responsibility, and what we've learned really paving the way for us to start new endeavors and learn how to be more independent. So air and fire sextiles, liking it. We've got a lot of them this month, and we're really going to see the momentum pick up. And last but not least, this is one of the more gnarly transits. It does kind of dip into July. I talked about this in my June 2020 overview, but it's important to talk about it because you guys are going to start feeling it probably right around maybe the 28th or the 29th of June. Now, technically, this aspect is taking place, or this transit, from June 30th to July 2nd. Now, Mars and Aries, obviously, we know that it's not just this courageous little spitfire. It can also be about wielding weapons, guns, things that are sharp, hot. It's about self-defense. It's about primal responses and what we need to survive. As Mars comes into a hard angle and squares Pluto in Capricorn, you know, okay, Mars is in Aries, you know, it rules Aries, but Pluto in Capricorn is very calculated. It's very cold. It definitely can be very mean. And I think with Mars challenging Pluto, we can see some very confrontational, combative, reactionary, dangerous, angry situations. Every time I talk about these like late degree cardinal squares, I have like 2020 PTSD. I have an Aries moon. So I keep thinking about, you know, when all these planets were in Capricorn and it was just like harassing my moon on and off for a year, and just all of the really confrontational situations that I kind of had. But when we see this play out in the world, we are going to feel like there is this need to stand up for something, to fight for something. There are going to be angry, reactionary, confrontational, physically aggressive people. So we want to be mindful that it's in the air, right? As if Mars and Chiron and Jupiter and Aries wasn't enough, then we have to throw in a Mars-Pluto square. This is going to be happening somewhere around a major lunation. I don't even remember because it's somewhere in my my monthly video, but I remember kind of looking over it being like, wow, there's something going on right around the time there's a lunation and there's a Mars-Pluto square. I'm thinking it's when we have, it's not the new moon in Cancer, so maybe it's going to be the full moon in Sag. I think it's maybe around the full moon in Sag. So yeah, so just know that that energy is building as we get later and later into the month of June. Obviously, I'm going to talk about where this is taking place in your chart, but be mindful that when Mars and Pluto square off, it's like there's going to be like this like battle, you know, it's like it's the final boss battle. There's going to be a situation where wherever Mars is in your chart in Aries, it's going to confront Pluto. I almost said Putin. No, it's going to confront Pluto's power struggle, and it's going to confront, you know, Pluto and his ability to get angry and aggressive and controlling and threatening. It's like combating fear, basically, right? We've seen a lot of aspects to Pluto throughout the last like several months, whether it's the retrograde that we saw, the Venus retrograde, the Mercury retrograde conjunct Pluto. We saw through Aries season some squares to Pluto. We are now going to see Mars square Pluto. And I think being that Mars is the traditional ruler of Scorpio, similar to how I put an emphasis on Venus in the North Node, it was coming into love, right? Coming into security, coming into being grounded and being in our body. This Mars square Pluto, both rule the South Node in Scorpio. We are having to basically, like, what's the word that I'm looking for? We're going to have to make the decision to confront fear, basically. Sorry, I'm like tongue-tied. This is such a Mercury retrograde moment, but it is what it is. Confronting fear, and even in the face of what can be combative situations, right? So not both can coexist. We're not going to be able to have the fear-ridden situation wherever Pluto is in your chart in Capricorn and also still follow through with Mars motivation. Remember that Mars is also taking orders from Saturn. With the sextile to Saturn, Saturn's saying, nope, hold, nope, focus on this. Don't let fear get in the way. Hold. And then Pluto's going to say, are you sure? Aren't you worried about this? Aren't you worried about this breakdown? Guys, Pluto's in the late degrees of Capricorn. So, I mean, the thing is that, with Pluto being there, it's only going to be in those degrees for another couple of months, right? In the spring of next year, Pluto's going to briefly go into Aquarius, and we're going to see that whatever we were afraid of having happen in Capricorn may have been inevitable, right? Or it may have just been something that needed to change anyway, but we were just resisting that change. I think a lot of us have been resisting that change. So watch for the conflict, watch for the fierceness, the flames, all of that stuff from June 30th to July 2nd, okay? All right, so the month ahead. Listen for your rising, your sun, and your moon sign. This is going to be for tropical Western predictions. Obviously, I want you guys to know that it's choose your own adventure, okay? The best way to utilize these predictions is literally by listening to your ascendant, because even if you're like, I'm a diehard, my sun sign, if you listen to your ascendant, it's going to tell you where in your life this is going to be taking place. Definitely listen to your sun sign. It may resonate as well. Your moon sign also. But to make the most of this, listen to your ascendant sign, your rising sign. If you don't know what that means, check out a birth chart calculator online. All you have to do is put in your birthday, the time, the exact date and location, and you will be able to cast your chart, and you're going to want to look at the 9 o'clock hour. Now, if you don't know how to do that, check out my links below. Book a session with me. I would love to chat with you. So we are going to go in zodiacal order. We are going to start with Aries and Aries rising first. All right, and I will be pulling cards also and letting you guys know what I see for you in the month ahead in terms of the tarot. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So Aries, welcome. A lot of what I talked about really resonated for you, I'm sure, as always, especially for those Aries risings. But the month kicks off with June the 3rd when Mercury goes direct in Taurus. So Mercury is going to be going direct in your natal second house. It's clear to me that you've been reevaluating finances. Maybe you've been thinking about whether or not you can or you want to move. Maybe there's been some kind of hang up or some budgeting issues. Whatever's been going on, when Mercury goes direct, it looks like you're going to feel like you have found a solution, right? Especially because it's going to make a trine to Pluto. So whether this is renegotiating a salary or maybe money that was owed to you finally comes back, Mercury going direct is really going to help you when it comes to your money, your resources, but also your self-esteem. Now, on the 4th of the month, Saturn's going to go retrograde, and Saturn will be going retrograde in Aquarius. Now, this is going to be taking place in your 11th house. This is all about friends. It can be reevaluating certain friendships, reevaluating some of your goals. It's also possible that there is some going back and forth with like what friends you hold on to versus the friends you release and let go. You may feel like there is some sense of not feeling valued or feeling a little unstable because you don't know whether or not people are valuing you the way that you value them. So there's this sense of kind of like, do I hold on to this friendship? Do I turn them loose? You want to watch out also and really make sure that You're doing your due diligence to still be a good friend, to still check in with people, to be involved in certain networking events, and be holding yourself accountable for reaching your goals, specifically relating to timelines, right? Saturn deals with time. So don't get too off track, and make sure that you're sticking to those goals. On the 11th of the month, we're going to see Venus in Taurus come into a conjunction with Uranus in Taurus. Now, this is happening in your natal second house. This is kind of wild because there is possibly a wild kind of turn of events when it comes to money, resources, and also what you're investing in. Keep in mind that Uranus deals with things that are shocking and unexpected. It is also the ruler of your 11th house. A lot of you guys have possibly realized that mixing, money and friendships don't work. Borrowing money, loaning money to friends don't work. There can be issues in relationships as a result of that, and issues with give and take. Now, the other way that I can take a look at this is that there is some sense of you getting financial advice from groups of people, and be careful with whose advice you buy into. That's the one thing that I would say, because whether you find some kind of financial or trading advice online, or you get it from a friend, things can be a little rocky throughout the week ahead. Part of this is because we won't only see Venus conjunct the North Node, but we will also see Venus come into a square with Saturn. Now, Venus touches on the North Node on the 16th. That's generally a very positive kind of transit. There can be a sense of a real partnership coming together. There can be a sense of feeling very secure in your resources, and feeling like you have a lot of support from a partner. But by the same token, there can also be some conflicts and some issues that you run into around the 18th, when Venus then comes into a square with Saturn. So perhaps maybe it's like a friend says, hey, we're throwing this party. Do you want to chip in? And it's a lot more money than you would like to spend. So you're talking to your romantic partner, or you're talking to another person, and you're like, what do you think? Should I do that? And your partner goes, absolutely not. Don't spend money on that. That's crazy. Why should you have to pay for that? And so then there's some friction either in another relationship because of what you're spending socially, or maybe not seeing eye to eye when it comes to your friendships or how you're spending money. And it takes another person to kind of bring that up and kind of talk to you about it. So you'll be working through that from pretty much the 11th through the 18th. Now, on the 20th of the month, we're going to see Mercury come into a sextile with Jupiter. And this is interesting because Mercury is now back in Gemini. It's in its home sign. It's in your third house. It's coming into a sextile with Jupiter, and Jupiter's on your ascendant. So to me, it seems like very insightful information. Possibly you're realizing that you have sorted out an issue in regards to a document, in regards to a scheduling problem. Maybe you're really excited to share some news with someone. Maybe you're starting a new course or starting a new website. Something like that can be kind of going up as well. Any time that we see sextiles, there's positive energy that are being exchanged between the two. So it's Jupiter's optimism in your sign funneling into Mercury, which is exchange of informations, websites, books, things like that in your local environment, in Gemini in your third house. Look for good news, basically, is what I'm saying. There can be really insightful conversations as well. And then we've got on the 27th, Mars coming into a sextile with Saturn. So Mars is in Aries, it's in your sign. It's important when Mars is making aspects because it is your chart ruler. So as Mars comes into a sextile with Saturn, it's like, it kind of reminds me of isn't that the movie Babe, where he's like, that'll do, pig, that'll do. It's like getting that nod of approval, that's like, yes, you can do this, move forward. So when Saturn makes that sextile from your 11th house to Mars in your first, it's like a group that wants to align with you. It's like a goal that's coming into fruition, and you get really revved up and ready to do it. It's some kind of group effort that you've been working on and that you're putting together. In the back of my mind, I'm wondering, are there a lot of either Aries or Aries risings that's been really wanting to leave their job, and they're starting a new business, or they're collaborating with another partner who might be a friend, or starting a network, and you're in preparation for getting ready to finally break off and go your own way, right? Or maybe you're feeling like some of your own independent or individual goals are starting to set up. And so this is the week that you're like, okay, the website is launching, things are coming together, and I'm getting ready to tell my boss, I quit. Something like that can happen, especially when we get to the end of the month from the 30th of June through the 2nd of July, when you see your sign, your ruling planet Mars come into a square with Pluto and Capricorn. Now, Mars will be in your sign in the first house. Pluto is in the 10th house, which deals with bosses, careers, and changes and transformations. Watch for power struggles, either with a superior, a parent, it can be a boss, it can be just anybody who is in a position of power. So also like not a time to go toe to toe with the law, like not a time to, try to stand up to a larger business or a power bigger than you, because you're going to get kind of knocked down a peg. Okay. Also, the 10th house can represent your partner's home and family. So there can be some stuff going on where there's some strife with another person and it's affecting you emotionally, or it's affecting you in the home. So something like that can be happening as well. Pretty potent transit, okay? You don't need me to tell you that. You know, whenever Mars forms squares, you feel it. But you want to think back to what were some of the personal struggles you were experiencing in 2020? Think back to when we had the Mars retrograde in the summer of 2020, when Mars was in a square to Pluto. You might see kind of a brief couple days where it's reminding you of this again, okay? The card that I got for you is the Six of Wands. So the good news is you're victorious. You're coming out on top. I mean, it's like you can't do anything wrong. You can't really screw up either, because even if something doesn't fully pan out, you're still gonna like luck into a situation with Jupiter in your sign. So I think for a lot of you guys, it's like serendipitous things that happen that allow you to come out on top, that allow you to be well received. Maybe some of you guys are thinking about travel. Maybe some of you guys are giving presentations. You're talking to people. This can also be a card that talks about homecoming. And so I know for a lot of you, there may be this sense of like thinking more in the weeks or months ahead. Where is home? Where am I going? You know, what am I moving towards? Am I achieving some of my goals for where I would like to be in my life, right? Personal goals are really big for Aries placements right now. To me, it looks like you're going to do well and you're going to have a lot of support and there's a lot of momentum moving forward, but there's also a lot of positive either compliments or people who are going to be helping kind of push you forward on your path, okay? All right, so now we've got Taurus and Taurus rising. What's going on, Taurus? How you doing? All right, so the month kicks off for you with Mercury going direct in your sign. How are you feeling? It's been a rough one for the fixed signs. It's been difficult for you. I think having Mercury retrograde in your sign has definitely brought up this theme of needing to take a step back before really making up your mind. Some of you guys have been holding back and having conversations. Some of you guys have really been reevaluating what it is you value, right? Mercury actually started its retrograde in your second house in Gemini. So it went from your money house into your personal sign. So it brought up this theme of like, okay, money is a little bit slower, things aren't coming in as much, you know, what other new avenues of income can I drum up? How can I be thinking more about what my financial goals are? And what am I responsible for making happen myself, right? How do I change the way that I look at my value system? Do I no longer feel like I need to be attached to a dollar sign? A lot of you guys are learning that you can't base your worth off of how much money you have in the bank, how much money you make. Just collecting a paycheck. That doesn't define who you are. So it's been a rather kind of brutal, rude awakening that's been happening through this retrograde and the eclipses for you to rethink what your purpose is out in the world and what you want to be doing and how you want to make money. In the midst of that, okay, money's been tight, but I think Mercury going direct is really going to kind of help you reevaluate your beliefs, but mostly in yourself. Now on the 4th, you're going to see Saturn go retrograde in Aquarius, and that is going to be happening in your natal 10th house. Okay, so Saturn's been going through your 10th house. It's been in friction with your sign. You have really had to put the pedal to the metal when it comes to building out what you're doing for a living. Many of you guys are feeling this tension though, because you want freedom and you want to break away, but by the same token, you're having to kind of build up systems or build a business or hire people or navigate in bringing other people together and, you know, supporting them through the process of becoming more self-sufficient. So if you've owned businesses, you're probably trying to get it to that point where employees and managers are doing their thing, so you feel like you can step back more and you can have that freedom that you're craving. You're learning to delegate tasks and to work smarter, not harder. So as Saturn goes retrograde, you're going to reflect on what you've been building for the better part of the last several months when it comes to your professional life. I would just say to you that don't drop the ball. I think a lot of you guys have made big strides, but you are one of the signs that really cannot drop the ball. It's so important. Don't do it. Then on the 11th, we are going to see Venus come into conjunction with Uranus. Now, Venus is your sign. It's about opening. It's about receiving. It's about beauty and stability and all of the pleasure, right? All of the senses. So as Venus comes into conjunction with Uranus, I'm going to tell you right now, don't cut your hair. Don't, because some of you guys are going to realize, you know what? I'm getting a nose ring. I'm dyeing my hair purple. You know, I'm going to go get that big tattoo on my arm. And even though it's this really rebellious, shocking change that you make with your appearance or something that's very unusual in terms of how you show yourself to the world, and even if it feels good, because Venus is on the North Node, you're like, this is part of my expression. This is art. This is how I want the world to see me. This is how I want to dress now. From the 11th through the 18th, we're then going to see that at the end of this transit, Venus will pass the North Node conjunction, and then it will come into a square with Saturn, and you're going to have a situation where you've got a boss or a superior or somebody saying to you, don't do that. That's not professional. It's not time to do that yet. So, I mean, it's kind of bittersweet, you know. I think Venus in the first house is wonderful for attracting and alluring people, whether it's on your ascendant or your sun or your moon. I think Venus on the North Node is like, this feels good, so I'm going to do it. And I think Venus square Saturn is going to be this like kind of rude awakening where you're going to realize the effects of acting out or being a little rambunctious or maybe taking a couple days off of work. And then all of a sudden the repercussions really come in and you're going to go, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Or it's just not right timing, right? Maybe you were planning on, you know, taking a spa day and going and indulging and doing all these things for yourself. And then your boss is like, well, you need to be here. And you're like, well, this is what I need to do for me, right? Something like that's going to happen. So just be mindful that you're going to be more sensitive to these transits from the 11th through the 18th. Then on the 20th of the month, Mercury is going to come into a sextile with Jupiter. So Mercury is back now in Gemini. It's in your second house, and it is making that sextile to Jupiter. So Jupiter's in your 12th, man. It's about your beliefs. I hope you're praying your ass off. If you're a Taurus or a Taurus rising, when in doubt, pray it out. That's the best advice I can give you. Know that you have lots of support from the cosmos. There's lots of things going on in the ethers that are trying to either give you signs or indications or dreams or omens, or even other people who might want to jump in and they might want to invest in something that you're building or an idea, or they want to help bankroll something. That's another way that this can kind of happen. Now, I would say that you have to actively work to receive that. So there is a need also to maybe make sacrifice or give. I think the 12th house is the house of sacrifice. So what offerings are you giving, right? What are you doing? I mean, get in the habit on Thursdays to like put out an offering for Jupiter. I'll give him grapes. I'll give him wine. He likes gold and he likes purple. And it's always on Thursdays. You can go and look up like other offerings that you can give to Jupiter. That's just what I like to do. But you have to know that his energy is bigger than us. It's huge and it's very noble. So he might like it if you're working with him and giving offerings to him and stroking his ego a little bit and being like, I know that you're going to help me, help me. And if you're able to do this, you can work through me and I'm going to keep kind of acknowledging you. He likes me to talk about him. So that's the other way that I could see this play out, that if you're doing that 12th house Jupiter work, it's funneling into your second. Food, I think, is like a really good idea for offering specifically. Then on the 27th, we're going to see Mars in Aries come into a sextile with Saturn in Aquarius. So Mars is hanging out. It's chilling also in your 12th house. It's got a lot of you guys feeling very frustrated, having trouble sleeping, feeling moody. It's super spiritual though. Dancing and drumming can be a great way to kind of get those moods out, or listening to a lot of percussion, maybe being on a drum set, something like that. Getting out, working up a sweat, doing something that's going to integrate fitness and movement and vitality and spirituality. So I think of like hot yoga, or going and doing some martial arts, or something that's going to allow you to merge those two energies. But as Mars comes into a sextile with Saturn, there is the sense of you realizing that part of being spiritually motivated and connected and inclined helps you kind of strategize and figure out what direction you're going in when it comes to where Saturn is in your chart, in your 10th house. So maybe you're doing a lot of work behind the scenes, maybe you're working a lot independently behind the scenes, maybe you're filming a lot, maybe you're doing a lot of spiritual work in order to facilitate that structure, right, with what's going on in your career zone. So there's a real need to believe this month, Taurus, to be able to see some of this stuff all the way through. Then we're going to see on the 30th, there is an opportunity for you to really kind of, how do I put this? Put an end to a long-standing issue in regards to your faith, okay? So Mars is moving through your 12th house. That's going to bring up that feeling of being a little irritable, possibly dealing with situations that are beyond you. Maybe there's some frustrations that you're having with a partner, or you're dealing with some conflict with another person, because Mars also rules your 7th. Now, as it comes into a square, right, with Pluto being in your 9th house, you want to watch for back and forth with other people, especially like long distance transactions, anything in regards to conflict with financial transactions. I could also see that there could be a bit of issue or strife with traveling possibly, or maybe with a foreigner. That can be something else that can go on. You want to watch out for legal issues as well. Mars being in the 12th house makes me a little iffy. It can be anything in relation to somebody kind of possibly being exiled or being, put in jail. And then the square to Pluto in the 9th house is relating to law. Now, if we look at the 9th house and the 12th house as our beliefs and also what we view in a spiritual sense, I think this is more about you kind of looking at things going like, what do I do with this anger, right? And you're not really an angry sign, but you have a lot of Mars transits and this Uranus stuff that's going on that's getting you really frustrated. And maybe it's about how you look at anger and your philosophy around anger, and how you learn how to transmute that and to use it more in a sense of motivation, making that anger and that frustration be the fuel to get you to where you want to go. But really learning to understand it and like work with it differently, right? That's another way that I could look at this. All right, so let's see what the cards say for you for the month ahead. The card that I get is the 3 of Cups. That's a really positive card, actually. I would say that it's asking you to engage with other people and to enjoy what you're doing, right? To celebrate. 3 of Cups is like coming together with others, being able to cheers one another in regards to emotional endeavors, connections, anything in regards to just like unions, right? But the 3 of Cups can be more social. It can also be more in relation to like two people. I don't know. I would say that this isn't generally a bad omen card. Sometimes I do see this when something comes to light that involves another person. So I'm looking at like, Mars being the ruler of your 7th house of relationships that's coming into a square with Pluto. There can be things that can be said or actions that can kind of come about at the end of June going into July that can definitely bring up some issues with relationships that might involve other people, like other people trying to cause, conflict in a relationship, other people trying to kind of stir the pot and get you to fight with people. So you want to watch for that as well. Like, don't allow too many people to get involved in your relationship and like try to keep certain things sacred. But for the most part, this is a good card. It's talking about you being able to come together and socialize. And I think if you've had issues feeling like you don't have as many friends, or you haven't had the time to kind of connect and network with people because life has been happening so fast, I'm very excited to say that I think a lot of this is going to be about bringing in new social opportunities as well. We've got Gemini now and Gemini rising. These are going to be the most hot topics for you in June. The month kicks off on the 3rd, and this is going to be with Mercury going direct. So it's going direct in Taurus. It started as a retrograde in your sign. It makes me feel like, you know, there has been this need to kind of like go and hide out. Maybe you haven't felt as communicative. Maybe you have needed to rest more. Maybe there has been a sense of you reflecting a lot on, you know, situations with your family maybe that make you emotional, that you have needed to work through. That's the other way that I could look at it. Regardless, with that retrograde, it's like as soon as Mercury goes direct, I think you're going to start realizing like it's okay for you to let certain things go. It's okay for you to be emotional. It's okay to be under the weather. And it's okay to finally show up and have a conversation. Now, for the most part, you may not really be feeling it until Mercury gets back into your sign and Mercury's on your ascendant. So maybe you're holding back and like making a statement or telling somebody how you feel. But once it goes direct, sometime around that with Mercury in your 12th house, you can have some really significant dreams. So pay attention to that. I have a feeling that there might be like breakthroughs that you can have with dream interpretation, therapy, you know, tuning in, getting a reading, you know, having somebody kind of assist you with some kind of spiritual crisis, and like realizing that there can be real fears and insecurities either over stability or money that have been impacting you on a daily basis, and it's finally starting to catch up to you. If you've been feeling under the weather, also, you can start to kind of be feeling better, whether that's physically or mentally. Then on the 4th of the month, we are going to see that Saturn is going to go retrograde, and it's going to be in Aquarius in your 9th house. Now, this is a sister sign, so I think that for the most part, a retrograde making positive aspects to your placements in Gemini is about returning and reflecting on your beliefs. Can you see slowdown with travel or education? Sure. But it's a time to really like not lose the momentum when it comes to you doing a lot of work in regards to higher, you know, studies. If you have completed a program or a educational degree and you're like, maybe I'm gonna take some time off. I think the Saturn retrograde is saying like, stay on top of task, you know, make sure if you're studying for finals and things, you're doing that. Don't overlook the ability and the possibility to be able to travel. And there can definitely be some things slowing down when it comes to legality, publishing, and lawsuits as well. But Saturn in the 9th is interesting, especially in Aquarius. I feel like that's going to be, for a lot of you, just a transformation of your beliefs, and it's going to kind of better help you navigate your daily life as well. Then on the 11th of the month, we're going to see that Venus comes into conjunction with Uranus. So you've got Venus in your 12th house. It's going to conjunct Uranus, which is the ruler of the 9th. I'm wondering if there's something going on where there's like a lover or love at a distance, or if you're having a back and forth with somebody who's like culturally different or in another place. Maybe you're trying to keep it hidden. Oh my gosh, Gemini, with that conjunction happening in your 11th house, this can also be really significant, definitive things that are going on that affect you psychologically when it comes to relationships or money. Now, then on the 16th, we see Venus conjunct the North Node. So it's like, maybe you're feeling inspired. That's the other way I could look at this, is that you're feeling very inspired about creativity, and you need a private space to be kind of working all this stuff out. Venus on the North Node generally is a very positive transit, and it's about kind of nurturing something. And in this case, I think it might be like your beliefs or like a creative talent. And then last but not least, we're going to have Venus then on the 18th come into a square with Saturn. Now, this will be Venus in your natal 12th house still, squaring Saturn in the 9th. It makes me feel like there's a bit of a back and forth, and then you're like, no, I can't do this. If you're undergoing some kind of negotiations when it comes to like resources or settlements or anything like that, there can definitely be some topsy-turvy things that can be going on, and some delays and some things that kind of catch you off guard. Then on the 20th of the month, Mercury in Gemini comes into a sextile with Jupiter in Aries. So this is pretty significant because Mercury's back in your sign. It's in your first house. You're feeling more communicative. You're more open. And it makes that sextile to Jupiter in your 11th. It feels like maybe if you've been in your head a little bit and hiding out from other people, not wanting to socialize or talk about what's been going on, It's like right around the 20th, you might have a breakthrough and you find that you have a really inspiring conversation with a friend, or maybe you reach out to somebody and say, hey, this is where I've been missing, I've been having a difficult time, this is what's going on. It might be that, a friend shows up and lends a helping hand in some capacity. Whatever it is, it's like there's going to be a silver lining, especially because it's involving your chart ruler. So even if you're having a difficult time emotionally or spiritually and you're kind of hiding out, you might have a friend that's like, I'm picking you up, we're going out, let's go, let's talk about it. So you're going to have a lot of forward momentum, I think, with your social life and people who are wanting to help make you feel supported. Then on the 27th, we're going to see Mars in Aries come into a sextile with Saturn in Aquarius. Now, Mars obviously is going to be in your 11th house. Like I said, you're busy, socializing, there's a lot going on. There's this real emphasis to like be in a lot of places at a lot of different times with a lot of different people. And you should be feeling really motivated to achieve your dreams or desires, especially with support from groups. Now, it's going to be making this sextile with Saturn that is in your 9th house. So it makes me feel like, maybe traveling with a couple friends is what the doctor ordered. Maybe you going to a group workshop or a learning event can be really beneficial and really helpful. Maybe it's about planning a trip in the future with friends. Maybe it's going to be about your beliefs revolving around friendships shifting. But regardless, in some way, now you're getting a lot of support from Saturn, and it's really encouraging you to keep expanding and moving forward, perhaps even with new groups of people, because you're learning something new from some of these people. And then finally, on the 30th of June through the 2nd of July, we are going to see Mars in Aries come into a square with Pluto in Capricorn. Now, this is a very intense energy. Like I said, Mars is in your 11th house, so it's really pushing forward with these group endeavors. And then it's going to come into a snag and it's going to square Pluto. So this tells me that maybe you're wanting to socialize, you're going out, you're wanting to spend money, and you owe money. You're having to pay stuff off, having to pay credit cards. Maybe there is a power struggle in regards to resources, and a partner says, like, why are you going out spending so much money? Like, why are you doing all these things with your friends? Like, scale back, we don't have the money for this. There can be something like that happens because the 8th house deals with other people's resources, and people kind of like reminding you that you may not have a limitless kind of expense capability. Let's see what the cards say for you, Gemini, for the month ahead. Oh, nice card. 2 of Wands. So it's like you just keep on trucking, dude. It's like, okay, anything's possible, like really assessing a situation. I feel like for a lot of you, especially Gemini risings, this is you going back and forth. Like, do I say something? Do I not say something? Like that's kind of the feeling that I'm getting. You're like waiting and kind of like weighing out the 2 options. You're weighing out a decision before you decide to move forward. And you're like, okay, this is how it could go, or this is how it can go. Which way am I going to go? Probably hoping for the best, planning for the worst, and having a backup plan, right? Because that's what Geminis are good at. But I think that for you, it's also about being like anything is possible. So there is some sense of a real shift or a change in your mindset, and really reminding yourself that anything is possible. And like you may have to really go the distance physically or emotionally or spiritually to be able to achieve some of your goals this month. Very nice card for you. All right, so now we've got Cancer and Cancer rising. Hope you're doing well, Cancer. The month is going to kick off with you on the 3rd of June, and this is going to be when Mercury goes direct. Now, Mercury is going direct in Taurus. It's going to be in your natal 11th house. I get the feeling that this can be about a friend from the past returning, a conversation with somebody from the past who you used to socialize with, this feeling of maybe needing to reconnect with someone, and it can be somebody that you really value, right? It can also be if there's been misunderstandings or miscommunications with friends or a reevaluation of your goals that have been going on. Now you can kind of start to break through this. This Mercury retrograde has been in a hard angle to Saturn, and Saturn's been in your 8th. So there's been lots of changes and transformations with friendships, and it may feel as if like some friendships fell off and like you're mourning them and you've been missing them in some capacity. So I think this retrograde is going to help you kind of make sense of that and reach out to the ones that are worth holding on to. On the 4th of the month, we're going to see Saturn then go retrograde. And like I said, Saturn is in your 8th house of other people's resources. it deals with taxes, death, inheritance, all that stuff. So there is this sense of also possibly feeling the financial crunch, and kind of being like, you know what, I actually really need some kind of support. I really need to reevaluate my assets, my joint resources, and there can be, in a way, like clearing up issues with debt or clearing up issues that you've had with taxes that can come up for you as well. Then on the 11th, Venus in Taurus comes into a conjunction with Uranus in Taurus. Now, this is going to be happening for you in the 11th house. So this tells me that there can be like this sudden kind of turn of events when it comes to your friendships. Now, it can involve a woman because Venus can be a woman. It is going to, in the days ahead, be in some difficult, challenging aspects to Saturn. So it can be like, if there is a new friend that you make and you're getting to know them, you might spend a week getting to know them or hanging out with like a different group. And you might be like, I don't really know about this. At first, they're kind of weird and wacky and it's fun, but then you realize like, maybe it's not my cup of tea. These aren't my people. Maybe they party a little too hard. Maybe they may be a little too rich for your blood. That's something else, or a little too wild. Part of the reason why I say this is because, you know, on the 16th, Venus will conjunct the North Node. And it's interesting because Venus is the ruler of Libra and Taurus. So it's not just associated, you know, with Taurus, it's also associated with your 4th house. And it makes me feel like you're dealing with some back and forth friendship from the past and like, you know, how it makes you feel, or maybe they show up somewhere around your home, or they make an appearance on your home and it really shifts the way that you're feeling. Or maybe you run into them somewhere around the neighborhood. I could see that as well. Now, Venus on the North Node is a positive transit, and I think that it can also make you realize what you really value, what you really cherish in relationships, and what's important, and this kind of comfort that you have from a certain friendship in general. Things get difficult on the 18th, though, when Venus comes into a square with Saturn. And there can be this reevaluation of the friendship, you know, with the square to the 8th house, issues revolving around give and take are coming up, you know, how this affects you psychologically or emotionally. For you, there can also be a little bit of squabbles over money and resources and friendships. You want to really reflect on, you know, how this change makes you feel, and if you're willing to make the sacrifice emotionally or psychologically to kind of really communicate and express how you're feeling. It's also possible that it's just like mourning the loss of a friendship, or mourning the loss of, you know, somebody who you don't interact with, and it almost can feel like a death, and it's like really shocking that maybe you feel like that person no longer engages with you or no longer talks to you. Then on the 20th of the month, we have Mercury in Gemini coming into a sextile with Jupiter in Aries. So this is a cool energy. I think for you, it's a little different. You're going to be seeing that Mercury is hanging out currently in your 12th house, which kind of has you in your head a little bit. And it's making sextiles to Jupiter in your 10th. So there's a lot of like strategizing, I think, vision boarding, reflecting, working hard, organizing a private space so that way you can kind of get back to work or expand your professional life. If you're looking for an office space, or if you're looking to be able to have a private space to work from, that's ideal. I would also say that with this sextile, it's like there's all these new things that are coming in regards to work. So maybe like you're starting a new job, or maybe you're going to be starting your own business. And it's like, well, how does that make you feel, right? It's exciting because Jupiter's in the 10th house, but with Mercury in the 12th, it's like, is it going to work out? Is everything going to be okay? Do I have everything I need? You know, how am I feeling about this? So you can be kind of in your head a little bit about, you know, how you're moving forward and how things are going to kind of pan out. When in doubt, pray. This will benefit you as well with this 12th house energy. Pay attention to your dreams, you know, meditate and focus on manifestation so you can bring some of those new things into fruition in your 10th house. Then on the 27th of the month, we're going to see Mars in Aries come into a sextile with Saturn in Aquarius. So Mars is in your 10th house. You're busy. You're so busy. You got so much stuff going on. You're really showing up and you're, you know, defying, you know, all the odds. So, you know, you will be a force to reckon with. You don't want to have conflicts or squabbles with people at work. You want to watch out for it being over competitive, for moving too quickly, for moving too fast, especially with anything that's sharp or heated, or anything that cuts. So just take your time. I think with the sextile to Saturn being in your 8th house, perhaps maybe there's some kind of support. Maybe you go back to work. Maybe you're getting paid again. Maybe you get some loan that goes through, or maybe somebody pays you in advance to be able to fund some new stuff that you're doing. Saturn in the 8th can like teach you sometimes that you need to budget or that you need to take out a loan in order to finance something that you're working on. So regardless of how this plays out, just be mindful that, to me, it looks like something is stabilizing, and maybe because you're working or you're bringing more money in, or there's a loan that's gone through, you're able to expand your business and also feel like you can pay your bills. And then last but not least, on the 30th of June through the 2nd of July, you're going to have Mars in your 10th house of Aries square Pluto in Capricorn. So it's going to be making that square to Pluto in your 7th house. I feel like work in a way is taking precedent, and maybe you're feeling like you have to work a lot. Maybe you're feeling like you're under a lot of pressure to show up and meet deadlines and get things done, or there's a lot of competitiveness. There can be friction at work, either with clients or with bosses. If you're somebody who has a business partner, or if you work with a romantic partner or spouse, there can be some tension as well. This is happening for you in an angular house, similar to Aries, Libra, and also Capricorn. So the fact that you're having this square from your 10th to your 7th makes me feel like there can be some conflict in the home with your partner or with your partner's family that's kind of challenging your relationship, or vice versa. There can also be a sense of like feeling like you're being more assertive in your relationship and you're not going to let somebody push you around and tell you what to do. Watch for power plays and power struggles, because it's very likely to come from this transit, and you don't want to get combative with anyone, okay? Especially within relationships or in the workspace. The card that I get is the Six of Swords. All right, very exciting. This is a great card. It makes me wonder, well, first of all, Six of Swords is like moving on to calmer waters, right? It's greener pastures in all the best ways. It's like going to the next level, going to the next phase, moving on, moving forward, leveling up. Some of you guys might be moving to new workspaces, right? Some of you guys might also find that it's time for you to move into a new phase of life. Now, the swords do represent kind of like tension sometimes, or anxiety, or how you're thinking about the process of change, how you communicate and work through that. But sixes are about, you know, getting from point A to point B. So the one thing that I would say is that whether you're moving office, moving home, moving on from some old relationship, some old friendship, whatever it is, like, you know, you're making the right move and everything's going according to plan. All right, so we've now got Leo and Leo rising. Welcome to June 2022. Hope you're doing well. The month is going to kick off on the 3rd of June when Mercury goes direct in Taurus. Now, Leo, I know you have been feeling a little under fire. This has been quite intense for you, as well as the other fixed signs. Hope you're hanging in there. Basically, you know, Mercury going direct in your 10th house is going to, in so many ways, make you feel like work issues with bosses, anything in relation to your career, if it's back and forth with interviews, if it's whether or not you're going to leave or if you're going to start something new, this will kind of ease up a little bit, right? So there's going to be less miscommunications in the office. Now, when it goes direct, it's going to be in Taurus for a little bit, and it's still going to be in a square to Saturn. So one thing that I would say is that there can still be conflicts in regards to who's in charge at work, who's in charge in relationships, whether or not you feel like you can work with certain partners, whether or not you feel like a home situation is working or not, in respect to what's going on with a partner. So there's some tense conversations going on in both areas of your life. Then on the 4th of the month, Saturn is going to go retrograde in your 7th. So like I said, there's no coincidence. I think maybe it's just affecting the fixed signs more because it's happening in the angular houses, especially if you're going by your ascendant. So it's almost like there's this sense of, between Mercury going direct and you feeling like you're kind of taking the initiative or you're taking control of the conversation, then there's a lot of reflecting on your relationships. Now, it can be reflecting on friends because it's an Aquarius. It can be reflecting on romantic partners, marital partners, all of that stuff. The eclipses that have been taking place have been highlighting the same theme. So likely you're seeing where the issue lies and how to best approach conversation-wise some of these issues. But I think when Saturn retrogrades, it's a time to reflect on the strides you have made in relationships. And it's not really necessarily negative. I think that some relationships can actually grow in commitment. You can grow stronger together. But there's a sense of reflecting, how much you've matured when it comes to relationships in general. Know that there's still a turning point in like a major, chapter that's going to be taking place in July going into August. That's when you really decide whether or not certain people are going to be cut out to be in a relationship with. So there's no need to make a big decision right now. But if you're experiencing issues in relationships or setbacks or delays in relationships, that might actually ease up as a result of Saturn going retrograde in your 7th house. Now, on the 11th of the month, Venus is going to come into conjunction with Uranus, and this is going to be happening in your natal 10th house of career. So there may be some unusual things going on in the workplace, like maybe they're painting the walls a crazy color, maybe there is a wacky new person in the office, maybe a boss is deciding to suddenly give bonuses. There can be cool things like that happening. But I think that for the most part, this happening in the 10th house, I would just warn you, watch out for any like inter-office relationship weirdness, dating bosses, friction with people who might be in relationships or married. Watch out for that. Being that it's happening in an angular house and it involves your 7th, it has something to do with like your status. So by the same token, some people might be like, surprise, I'm engaged, or surprise, my husband and I separated and now I'm, no longer considered to be a married woman, and we're also separating our business. So weird stuff can be happening like that, especially considering the fact that, Uranus is the ruler for you of your 7th. So there's a lot of public displays of your relationships, your where you are in the world. You want to watch out for like overdoing it. So I think of like 7th and 10th houses, showing people how much money you're making, showing people your jewelry, showing people all this stuff. There can be like a lavishness and a gaudiness that can put certain people off if you're not careful. Now, when Venus conjuncts the North Node on the 16th, this will be happening in the 10th house, and I think it's wonderful because it gives you the opportunity to really tune into what you love doing for a living or what you love about your workplace. Great time to like spruce something up, bring some art in maybe to your office, maybe move things around a little bit. And it's just adjustments. So if you're like setting up a business, or if you're having to figure out how to design, a new logo for a business, there's a lot of like trying unusual things and seeing what sticks. On the 18th, you're then going to see Venus come into a square with Saturn. So likely it's going to be somebody like relationship wise, maybe, who says like, no, I don't like the way that looks, or no, I don't want you taking that job. It's going to take away from our relationship, or, no, I don't think we should be working together. Definitely a lot of friction, Leo, that whole week. Okay. So the 11th through the 18th, really pay attention. I think it's going to possibly hit you a little bit harder than most of the other placements. So just, you've been warned. Whenever we see Venus square Saturn, it's like setbacks in relationships or delays. So I could see where, maybe you got excited that you were talking about getting married, but your partner's like, no, we're not telling anybody yet. Maybe you got excited about going public in a relationship and somebody's like, I'm not ready to commit. Like really kind of slow the roll a little bit when it comes to that stuff. Then on the 20th of the month, you're going to see that Mercury in the sign of Gemini is coming into a sextile with Jupiter again. So Mercury is in your 11th house, which deals with friends, goals, social media, and networking. And it's forming that sextile to the 9th. So I wonder, are you traveling with friends? Are you going places? Are you making big statements on social media about your beliefs or about your travels or how traveling has impacted your philosophy on life, and you're wanting to share that with other people? And maybe you're just really excited to hit the road and go and do something. Study groups, study clubs, learning new things with other people, I think is also very well supported as a result of this sextile. Then on the 27th of the month, we're going to see Mars come into a sextile with Saturn. So Mars is hanging out. Obviously, like I said, lots of motivation around higher education, travel, getting on airplanes, doing things, and just your personal beliefs in general. Now it's sextiling Saturn. So I'm wondering, like, was there some relationship friction that was going on earlier in the month and you needed to get some time away to reflect and kind of figure out what's important to you? And as a result of traveling or maybe like a workshop that you do or something you learn, you kind of ground yourself out on the 27th and you come back and you're like, this is what I've learned. You know, I've taken some time to really think about what I want. I've talked to my friends, I've reflected, you know, and this is what I think we should do. It's a wonderful energy if you're trying to problem solve with a partner. It's a wonderful energy if you're trying to also go through a swift separation. So if you're going through a legal separation, or if you're trying to mediate, that can be something else that can be handled around the 27th as well. Planning to travel and go with someone else, or planning a trip with somebody else around this time is awesome. Also, like, relationships can really kind of pick up steam, especially with people who might be in other places. So through friends, you might meet people, or maybe if you are partnered, your partner wants to join you in the fun. Last but not least, we're going to have Mars in Aries come into a square with Pluto in Capricorn. So Mars is obviously still through your ninth. That energy is super strong. It's not changing. And we see that there is this friction with Pluto in your sixth house, which deals with coworkers in your daily routine. So I'm wondering, like, are some of your health or fitness goals kind of falling off because you've been so active? Has there been a sense of you overlooking certain, like, responsibilities at work? You know, do you have a problem or an issue with a coworker when it comes to getting everything done and in a timely manner in the workplace? Something like that's kind of happening. And I get the impression that it's just really important for you to try to diffuse conflict. Like, maybe you've been traveling a lot and then you come back into work and then you're like, surprise, I'm putting in some more time off. And they're like, what? And you get a little bit of pushback, right? That's something that can be happening with this square. The sixth is about service. It's about helping other people. And the ninth is also about legality. So you want to watch for, like, conflicts in the workplace. There can be a sense of needing legal aid. There can also be a sense of just not quite getting along with people at work in general, especially because your sixth house is Capricorn. So watch out for that, especially if people are just giving you a hard time in terms of, like, you living your best life, honestly. That's kind of the feeling that I'm getting. The Knight of Cups is the card that I get for you. So positive card. This can be about a water sign coming into your life. So look for Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces people. But this can also just about you wearing your heart on your sleeve. That's kind of the feeling that I'm getting. And just, like, saying what you mean, saying what you feel, not being afraid of the outcome, feeling more passionate, following your heart. If you're like, I need to, you know, go and visit this place and heal a heartbreak. If it's, I need to call this person up and tell them how I'm feeling. The Knight of Cups gives you the opportunity to feel more romantic, feel more sensitive, to believe in magic and also chemistry and attraction and all of these things. So there can be almost a sense of, like, being like, maybe we can bring the romance back by getting away, or maybe a little absence makes the heart grow fonder, and it ends up kind of bringing somebody in a way where you're really enjoying your time together and you're being really emotional and really passionate about your feelings. Okay, it can be a good omen for new romantic relationships as well. Next, we've got Virgo and Virgo rising. Hope you're doing well, Virgo. The month is going to kick off for you with Mercury going direct in the sign of Taurus, which is a sister sign for you, and it's happening in your ninth house. Well, like Gemini, you're ruled by Mercury. So when Mercury goes retrograde, you might feel a little bit more topsy-turvy than normal. So basically, I think Mercury going direct in a sister sign, you know, forming trines to Pluto at some point, is really helping you get into alignment with what you believe you can experience, what you believe when it comes to love, what you believe when it comes to children and the dating experience and travel and playtime and vacation, okay? I think that, you know, Mercury being direct is also going to square up some of the issues maybe that you have had with, do I go back to school and start training for a new position? Do I switch jobs? You know, do I possibly consider learning a new task or a new skill? Certainly there has also been some kind of hang-ups with either your health or your schedule in regards to these topics. Part of that's because Mercury has been in a square to Saturn. So when you see Mercury get back into Gemini, I think it's going to stabilize only as we get further into the month of June. Now on the 4th of the month, we're going to see Saturn turn retrograde in Aquarius, and this is going to be happening for you in your natal 6th house. So once again, it's bringing up the topic of scheduling, your health, whether or not you're staying on top of your daily routines. It's important for you to be factoring in fun or dating into your daily life. It cannot be all work and no play. So if you have been feeling sick, under the weather, if you've been dealing with long-standing issues in regards to health, I think the retrograde can kind of help you recover and feel better. But you don't want to fall off. So you still have to stay to your routines, you know, the time that you're setting aside for friends, the time that you're setting aside for fun. And it's really important also for you to stay on top of your health and your fitness goals. Do not fall off, because if you do, you can see that certain ailments or health issues can kind of return. Same thing also sometimes with digestional issues. Sometimes I see that with this square as well. There is a need to make time also for either continuing education or travel. It's one of these things that you have to kind of work into your routine, and it seems agitating, but I think it's going to be really worth it if you stick with it in the long run. Then on the 11th of the month, we're going to see Venus come into a conjunction with Uranus, and this is happening in the sign of Taurus, so it's in your 9th house. Exciting for meeting love at a distance, maybe somebody who's culturally different or diverse. Maybe there's this feeling of like being on different timelines, different time zones, different parts of the world from another person, and maybe you're having exciting conversations with somebody about something you're learning. Maybe you're learning about new culture. Maybe you meet somebody online that lives in a different place. Now, when this conjunction happens, it for some people can be very shocking and unusual. But I think that because it's in an earth sign, it's going to be making aspects later down the road to Pluto as well, to your personal placements in Virgo. It's about changing and transforming maybe what you find attractive, or who or what you would potentially consider when it comes to your dating or your love life. Changes can happen revolving also around education pertaining to your children. Then we're going to have on the 16th, Venus conjunct the North Node in your 9th house. So you could meet somebody significant at an airport. You could have a new profound belief when it comes to love in general. There can be a new practice or a new belief system that you're entering into that you start kind of really starting to love. There could be a teacher or a mentor that comes around also that can like really help teach you about gardening or cooking or anything in regards to publishing or law. Then on the 18th, Venus is going to come into a square with Saturn. So it's interesting that you're like, oh, I love this. This is different. This is great. And then it's like, oh, there's a clash of the schedule, you know? I can't take that class on a Wednesday because I'm still working, or I can't hang out with my friends because I'm trying to crunch, I'm trying to study so I can like, you know, graduate and complete my degree. These are the things that you're going to see, the hang-ups when it comes to either education or your schedule or your dating life, and that not all things can kind of go at the same time. Maybe you're also reevaluating and you're learning new things about your health, and you're realizing that it's going to require you to make much more sacrifice or change or a commitment, maybe even to like food prep or working out than you thought. Then on the 20th, we're going to see Mercury come into a sextile with Jupiter. So we've got Mercury that's back in Gemini now. It's forming that sextile to Jupiter that's in your 8th house. So Mercury in the 10th is really busy at work, lots of emails, communications. Maybe if you've been waiting to hear about getting a new job, getting a raise, if you've been waiting to hear about benefits, if you've been waiting about hearing, getting some kind of benefit package. If you're somebody who's been considering moving for a new job and you're waiting to see if they're going to give you the salary that you're requesting, or maybe paying for the move, this can be something else that can come up as well. But generally speaking, when we see a sextile between your chart ruler and Jupiter, there's some good news on the horizon. So maybe you're finding out that you got a good, you know, kind of like review at work, and that you're going to be making more money in this next year. Then we've got on the 27th, Mars sextiling Saturn in Aquarius. So this is interesting energy. We've got Mars that's hanging out in your 8th house. It's very passionate, it's very sexy, and it's making this sextile also to Saturn. So there was this feeling that's like, yes, through detox, purification, clearing, doing my emotional, spiritual, psychological work, I'm actually uncovering where I can benefit my schedule or benefit my health. I have a feeling it's more about just being more open to vulnerability and addressing change more than anything. And as Mars goes through the 8th house, you know, we also can feel a little burdened with like having to pay things back, having to pay back credit cards, having to pay back loans. But I think with the sextile to Saturn in the 6th is like, okay, I've planned for this, you know, I can make that change, I can make that shift, maybe paying things in a timely fashion and getting ahead of bills so that way you don't feel like they're piling up. I would encourage anybody with a Virgo or Virgo rising to use like apps technology, like maybe move all of your bills to auto pay. Maybe it's setting something up with your banking or your account so that way as soon as you have your paycheck, there's a certain amount that gets either put into like a 401k or there's a certain amount that gets set aside into a savings account so you don't even get it. You don't have to think about it. It's just automatic. So that way you can kind of get ahead and feel like you're actually saving. It'd be a good time to do that with this transit. If you have to detox or cut back on certain foods as well, that's the time to do it. Cutting subscriptions, this is the time to do it. Then we've got on the 30th of June through the 2nd of July, we're going to be seeing that Mars in Aries is going to come into a square with Pluto in Capricorn. So I feel like this is killing off some kind of excess spending. Like if you're somebody who's been spending a lot of money on a hobby, spending a lot of money on art, spending a lot of money on going to a bar, dating, extra money on children, things like that. I think, you know, Mars coming into the 8th house is literally going to be somebody else that's like, dude, you need to cool it. Whether it's a partner saying, hey, we're spending too much money on recreation, or, you know, it's somebody saying, no, we're not going to give you the increase in the credit. Something like that is kind of setting up. That's going to help you kind of cool the jets. The 5th house is about the love we give. It's also about dating, and the 8th house is sex. So there can be this sense of, you know, while your sex drive is really revved up and maybe you're wanting to merge with another person, there is this sense of really needing to kind of really reevaluate, like, is my heart in this? Is this a good idea? Do I want to merge with this person? And do we move forward in a way where we're merging together, or is this just like a quick one-off situation? So only you can answer that. Some of you guys may feel the need to kind of cut off a lover or a romantic partner because it's not making your heart feel secure, right? And if you're owed money in any capacity for children or for like spousal support or child support, this can be another time where you're like really fighting for it. And you're like, no, I'm going to need that money. So be mindful of that. We have Temperance coming up for you. Timing is everything, you know, not rushing the process, taking your time, letting things kind of come together and build. This is also about healing and letting things happen in the appropriate moment, right? So, you know, this is a card that will kind of tell me sometimes it's going to be a month of like one step forward, two steps back, that you're kind of going back and forth and seeing what works and what doesn't work for you. And I think a lot of that's making the tweaks that you're going to be making either to your schedule or to things that have to do with your finances or your health. So you're going to have to kind of find your groove. It's not going to be something that happens all at once. And there's definitely going to be a sense of having to sort and sift and assess what goes and what stays. But if you take your time, know that, you know, you're going to reach your goal, but there is this emphasis on finding balance, finding the ability to get healthier, finding the ability to find peace, right? And especially that need to balance the mind, the body, and the spirit. So it looks like that's what you're going to be working on for the month ahead. Next, we have Libra and Libra rising. Hopefully you're doing well, Libra. Welcome to June. We have got Mercury going direct in your 8th house, which means maybe you're finally getting clear of some kind of source of stress when it comes to money and resources and joint partnerships. So if you've had partners that haven't been having consistent income, if you've had partners that you haven't talked about your financial situation, if you've been having stress over taxes or anything like that, all of this stuff is going to kind of clear up as Mercury begins to go direct. Now, the one thing I'll say is Saturn is still going to be receiving a square from Mercury. So if you're having to pay things off, or if you're waiting for money to come in, if you're reevaluating whether or not somebody is going to pay you, there can still be delays with some of these things happening. I think it's given you the opportunity to kind of reflect on what you can do without. And if there's been a lot of stress or anxiety about things that you don't talk about, that you've been keeping quiet, that they can't stay hidden. They have to come out. Otherwise, it's going to create a great deal of stress for you. Then on the 4th of the month, Saturn is going to turn retrograde in Aquarius. Now, this is in your natal 5th house, and it is in a sister air sign. One thing I'll tell you, is that I get the impression, and this is just what I've noticed, especially in this house, you don't realize it, but you're having to work a lot harder, right? Saturn is work when it comes to having fun and working a lot harder with, you know, being open to receiving love or joy. So Saturn has probably felt like a little bit of a killjoy. If you have children, you've had more responsibility with them. If you have friends, you might not feel like you're connecting with all of your usual friends like you usually would. And there can be this sense of like really trying to figure out what brings you happiness. Now, I think with Saturn turning retrograde, it's going to give you a little bit of breathing room, but I don't want you to immediately go back to work. You're one of those people, because of the placement, where you have to work harder at actually integrating creativity, having fun, prioritizing your children, you know, talking about having children if that's something you're interested in, and making time for dating. Saturn is time. Then on the 11th, you're going to see that Venus comes into conjunction with Uranus. This is important because Venus rules your chart. So that conjunction that's taking place in your 8th house can be shocking. There can be sudden things happening out of the blue in regards to other people's money. Now, other people may suddenly, you know, receive something. They may, excuse me, offer you a large lump sum of money. This can be a time where you can win something. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens. I get the impression that, excuse me, hold on. I get the impression that what's going to go on here is there is this unveiling of what somebody else has and how it can benefit you. It'll be shocking. It'll be sudden. You watch out for unexpected connections in love. And just total changes that are going to be happening in regards to your joint resources. Now then on the 16th of the month, Venus will conjunct the North Node. So just a couple days later, Venus is on the North Node. So maybe you get the exciting news on the 11th, and then on the 16th it physically manifests. Maybe you receive it, maybe you're gifted something, maybe you inherit something, maybe you get a refund for something. Something like that is going to happen. And then on the 18th, this is kind of where things get a little bit more challenging. Venus is going to come into a square with Saturn in your 5th house. So this is about not going ham in spending a bunch of money on credit cards. This is about not going massively into debt and justifying it because you want to have a good time. This is about not overly indulging and going too deep on the sweets and other things, or overly indulging because of the sense of pleasure with another person. And then, you know, having to kind of face the music a week later and going like, oh my goodness, this is the bill, you know. This is also not spending too much on hobbies. That's something else I would watch for as well. There is this theme between friendships and sexual relationships. And I think with Venus in the conjunction to Uranus in the North Node, there can be sudden opportunities to do something strange and unusual sexually. It can involve, you know, more than one person, or doing something that's a little taboo. And then there can be this sense of like reflecting on it, going like, do I like this? Do I enjoy this? Secrets in relationships can be exposed as well, especially if there's some stuff that's going on where you're kind of fraternizing outside of a relationship, whether that's you or someone else. But likely, because it involves Venus, it could be you. Taking chances also when it comes to investments and other things as well. An investment could possibly pay off, okay? And with Venus conjunct Uranus, there can be like this really thrilling, romantic, kind of sexual, passionate thing that's kind of shaping up. But I would say be careful with those investments and taking chances on things that might be a little bit more speculative. As Venus conjuncts the North Node, it's about getting the money, but with the square to Saturn, it's like, don't turn around and then just immediately spend it. Like, I think of like somebody who wins a bunch of money on like a slot machine and they just sit there and they keep playing it and then you lose it, you know? So it's kind of saying like, don't overdo it, especially as you get closer to the 18th. Then on the 20th of the month, we see Mercury come into a square with Jupiter. So Mercury's back in Gemini and it's forming a sextile to Jupiter. So this is cool. Mercury in your 9th, traveling, learning, sharing, teaching, educating. Your beliefs are kind of lighting up and it's in a sextile to Jupiter. So sharing ideas with other people, traveling with a partner, being able to initiate some new endeavor that involves teaching, possibly collaborating with another teacher, bringing in a guru, or something like that. And maybe you're just more excited about sharing your ideas and your insights and your beliefs with a partnership, and you're seeing the bigger picture kind of coming together in regards to that, and you're talking about the future. Lots of support coming in because Jupiter is in your 7th house, so it's really highlighting the theme of others and partnerships and relationships. Some of you guys are talking about engagement. Some of you guys are talking about marriage or are getting married, planning a wedding. That can be something else that can happen with this sextile because the 9th house deals with the actual ceremony in itself. Then we've got on the 27th, Mars is coming into a sextile with Saturn. So Mars is in the sign of Aries and it's sextiling Saturn in Aquarius. So Mars is in your 7th, heating up relationships, man. There is lots going on there. You can be feeling like on one hand, it's very exciting and there's a lot kind of happening and it's moving very quickly and like new people are coming into your life to partner with you. They can be kind of pushing you to get outside of your comfort zone and things can be speeding up in the relationship department. New counselors, therapists, astrologers can kind of quickly move into your life to help give you support. And as it's sextiling Saturn in your 5th, these are people who are going to say, pay a little bit more attention to romance, have some playtime, finger paint, get involved in creative projects, express yourself, have a good time. So maybe if you're needing somebody to help you strategize designing something, to help you design the cover of a book, to counsel you through the process of figuring out, what you want to do for a living. Like getting a career coach could be wonderful if you're feeling a little stuck because it's really kind of supporting energies that are going back and forth between your 7th house and also Saturn in your 5th. So that way you can come up with a plan through the support and the help of somebody else to figure out how you can integrate more happiness into your daily routine and kind of live your life's purpose, right? Then on the 30th of June through the 2nd of July, we've got Mars and Aries in your 7th house coming into a square with Pluto and Capricorn in your 4th. Now, you want to watch for this. There can be some conflict going on between a partnership and your home life. Conflict with others. So I think of like people who, in serious situations, I have seen stuff where like there's like threatening going on of people being like, I'm going to come to your house, or family that you get into it with and you're like, get out of here, don't stay here. Remember, Pluto is in your 4th house. It's been there for a while. It's really uprooting everything in regards to your family and things in regards to the past and your emotions. And as it comes into a square with Mars, there can be some tension between family, domestic stuff, as well as relationships. And I think that partners come in to help incentivize you and say, hey, you can't be in the past. You can't be afraid of what happened in the past. We can't continue these negative kind of toxic emotional behaviors. We got to cut that out. We got to stop. And so, if you need a little bit of support, or if you need somebody who's going to give you a little bit of tough love, certainly coaches, like I said, can be helpful. And people who can help get you out of a funk if you're repeating negative emotional bad habits, especially if it's stuff that's long-standing or something that you've learned from your family. I can only just speak as like a Libra rising, but I've just noticed that there's been like several conversations that I've had with my partner who's been like, okay, so you're afraid of making change, so just do it, and I couldn't see it. It took somebody else to say to me, like, you can't behave this way, you got to just deal with it and don't be afraid and make the change. And those were the conversations that needed to happen to kind of show me like, it's okay, I can keep moving forward. So those conversations will come sometimes through conflict with other people, but I think Mars and Jupiter and Aries is kind of teaching us that not all conflicts are negative. Sometimes we need a little bit of friction to be able to level up and also clear the air. So let's see what the cards have to say for you, Libra. The card that I get for you is the 10 of Cups. I'm relieved because I was looking at that square and I'm like, I think that this is like happily ever after. This is like everything kind of goes according to plan. Everything kind of works out. I think it's really reiterating for you that a lot of this ties to home, family, your beliefs. There's a lot of things that you're going through that you're shifting emotionally this month that's helping you kind of figure things out, so that way you can kind of better assess and plan and, like, you know, understand the bigger picture of where your life is going in general. So when I see this card, it's about emotional cycles completing, family coming together, people celebrating, really this feeling of like, okay, I've been working really hard for this. So it's about emotional completion, emotional fulfillment, and being able to share that with other people that you love, be that your relationships, your partners, your family, anything like that, and really feeling like everything has kind of come full circle and that you have a lot to be appreciative for. Good on you, Libra. Next, we have Scorpio and Scorpio rising. Welcome to June 2022. Hope you're well, Scorpio. You, along with Taurus and Leo and Aquarius, you guys are the ones that you got to keep trucking, keep going. It's going to be okay. I know that it has been quite eventful with some of these eclipses that we have had, and a retrograde that has been going through your 7th house of relationships. So if you are a Scorpio who has been having miscommunications with your partner, if you are a Scorpio who has been going back and forth as to whether or not you end a relationship, or if you let somebody from the past come back, this is all getting sorted out, especially because on the 3rd of June, Mercury is going direct. Now, keep in mind that this Mercury retrograde went from your 8th house, where Gemini is, into your 7th. So things were unveiled to you about how your partner was feeling, whether or not they felt secure, stuff going on with money, joint resources, taxes, documents, conversations. And so when it dropped back into Taurus, it was in your opposite sign. So you have to learn how to communicate efficiently with other people. And these other people might have felt stubborn. They might have been really fixated. They might have been frustrated, especially with their career, feeling like things aren't coming out the way that they want them to, that there's delays, or kind of getting negative or pessimistic about their work stuff. And that might have affected the relationship and the way that you guys get on. But for the most part, with Mercury going direct, I think it's going to stabilize a little bit. It's going to come into some positive angles with Pluto, which is your chart ruler, which makes me feel like through you learning how to not just be a good communicator, but a good listener, that you can really level up in some of your relationships. And it's going to give you the opportunity to positively impact others and communicate more efficiently. Then on the 4th of the month, Saturn's going to go retrograde, and that's going to be in your 4th house. So I know that it has been challenging. It's been tumultuous. You have had to deal with probably a bit of a dark night of the soul, issues with your home, delays with family, delays with property, houses taking too long to go through escrow, build outs taking too long, higher costs than anticipated. There's been a lot going on, a lot of home expenses, a lot of responsibility. And I think with Saturn going retrograde, you can kind of reflect on what you have gotten right? The emotional changes and shifts you have made. It can feel easier for you to move or to sell property, or things may move forward in terms of developments with a home or family situation. I think that there's a sense of like not letting the past kind of get you down when Saturn goes direct. It is in friction still with your sign, and it's also in friction with the North and the South nodes. So for many of you, there's this feeling of feeling conflicted with having to let go of an old part of your identity. And it's hard because it's got you definitely in your feelings. And for some of you, it also materializes as like real somber events that take place in your home life or your family life. Some of you guys have had to say goodbye to people. Some of you guys have had to say goodbye to homes. There's been some really difficult situations with parents. So regardless of what has happened, know that Saturn retrograde is a time where you can like reflect on everything you have been doing right. Don't drop the ball on taking good care of yourself emotionally. It's important for you to still be very emotionally nurturing to yourself, and communicating as much as you can with a partner about a domestic situation or an emotional situation. Now on the 11th, Venus will conjunct Uranus. And I got to tell you, if you thought the last month was crazy, hold on to your pants, because your partner might get a little bit crazier. If you are partnered, relationship stuff in general. You have to keep in mind that these retrogrades are activating eclipses, so it's still bringing up themes from like a month ago when we had these eclipses. So when Venus conjuncts Uranus, it can be a sense of either your partner acting a little weird or wacky, Maybe they have a really weird new haircut or style. Maybe they're dressing differently. They're carrying themselves differently. Maybe they bring a piece of art or a rug into the house and you're like, that's hideous. I don't like that. There's just some kind of friction regarding, either values or actual aesthetics that just you don't resonate with it. Venus Uranus can be like love at first sight though. So those of you guys who are single, there can be the sense of like you meet somebody and you're like, oh my God, who's that person? Like you have to talk to them. You're really drawn to them. But by the same token, there can be a little bit of friction with a partner. Now, Uranus rules your 4th house, so this can also be friction between a partner and a family member. It can be a time where just suddenly there's somebody from the past that appears. That can happen as well. On the 6th of the month, on the 16th of the month, we're going to see that Venus conjuncts the North Node in your natal 7th house. So the North Node is where we want to go. Venus on the North Node can be a really prominent person who shows up in your life. So if you're single, keep your eyes open. It means like it could be that maybe you meet somebody new and they're not what you're typically attracted to. So maybe the Venus-Uranus North Node aspect is like, oh, they caught my attention. That's not what I would usually go after, but like they're interesting. I think with Venus on the North Node, it can be also about really significant partners that come into your life business-wise. People who you can collaborate with, make art with, invest with. These things can happen as well. And if you are in a Venus or if you're in a Venus or a 7th house year, or if you have like a North Node in the 7th, this is something to really pay attention to because prominent people are going to start appearing in your life. Now on the 18th of the month, Venus in Taurus comes into a square with Saturn in Aquarius. So I also wonder if there is this sense of like, that you have to break something off with somebody to fully move forward with somebody new, and you're having a difficult time letting go of the past. Or maybe you don't want to be alone, or maybe you don't like being in your home alone. Maybe family is not as accepting of a new partner. Maybe you're in a relationship with somebody new, somebody from the past comes back, and it ruffles your partner's feathers. Anything in regards to conflict with your family in a relationship, or moving forward with new relationships and the past coming back and kind of rearing its ugly head will cause drama. You have been warned because that is kind of what it's starting to look like. When Venus comes into a square with Saturn, there is a sense of either a partner saying like, you haven't really let the past go, or why do you still have this picture of you and your ex? There can be a sense of a partner saying, I don't jive with your family. Like these things can kind of happen. So you've been warned. Similar to Libra and also Taurus, you're going to be feeling this pretty much the 11th through the 18th. The goal is to reconcile with the past and let the past be the past, and really put it to rest so that way you can move forward. So if that means moving also, there can be themes about moving forward. Venus is going to say, I want to move forward. I want to move to a new place. I want to change the house. I want this. I want that. And she'll become very restless. So you might see that in partnerships. Then on the 20th, we have Mercury in Gemini, sextile Jupiter in Aries. Mercury is hanging out in your natal 8th house again. So it's about talking and communicating about somebody else's money or resources, documents. It can be really reflecting deeply psychologically. Anything in regards to the esoteric, studying tarot, astrology, stuff like that's really great. And when it's in a sextile to Jupiter in your 6th, I wonder if some of you guys are going to be going, okay, it's time to restructure my schedule so I have time to do more of this. If you happen to be in the field of health, wellness, fitness, if you work for yourself, if you are involved in a metaphysical or spiritual business, this is about getting things organized. This is about planning and structuring things and planning for the future even. And you may feel like there is a need to be doing some research about detoxing, purging, clearing, cleaning, and anything in regards to health in general, specifically new routines, but maybe doing a cleanse before you start a new diet. It can even be about just investing a little bit of money into equipment, or investing a little bit of money into programs or things where you can learn more about health and wellness. On the 27th of the month, we have Mars coming into a sextile with Saturn. So Mars is in Aries, Saturn's in Aquarius. Mars is your ruling planet, so this is really important. Mars in your 6th is like, you're busy. You got to move your body. You got to be working out, burning off some steam. There's lots of busy work. You might feel like you have to take care of just, you know, stuff around the house more, fixing things. Maybe you feel like you have to run more errands. You have to do more for a pet. Maybe you're a little agitated because you're just feeling like you have to run around more than usual. And with its sextile to Saturn in the 4th, you're getting things done around the house. So I feel like you're going to be like a neat freak, kind of organizing a little bit, feeling like you need to kind of cross off a lot of stuff on the to-do list and get kind of like a house or a property done. You may benefit from hiring people and having them help you, right? Even though you're going to be like, I can do it myself. You may actually benefit because Mars Jupiter might be like, well, I'm going to pay a handyman to do that because I can't get everything done on my own and I need a little bit of help. But organization stuff in regards to you know, getting things done and also feeling like you have your house in order is going to be a big theme. If you're planning on selling a home, if you're developing a property, if you're needing to finish something up or a home project, this is the time to do it. And last but not least, we have on the 30th of June through the 2nd of July, we're going to have Mars in Aries coming into square with Pluto in Capricorn. So Mars rules your chart. Mars is hanging out in your 6th, and it's going to be squaring Pluto in your 3rd. Please hear me on this, okay? It's really important that you're avoiding accidents. You can be rushing around and you can hurt yourself. You could be rushing, trying to get to the hardware store to go pick up stuff to be working on the house, and you could have a car accident. I don't like saying that. You could be rushing and using a tool or something, and you could damage or you could hurt your hand. You could cut your hand, you could burn your hand, or anything in regards to your fingers, stuff like that, while you're working on stuff. So you need to be really careful. You want to be careful and be mindful of things hitting your head or flying off something, or making sure you're securing stuff on a wall or on a shelf, because I could see that this is another way that things could kind of play out, because the Pluto-Mars aspect is very quick, and it can cause a lot of damage. And Aries deals with the head or the face. So I think that because Mars in Aries and Jupiter in Aries in your 6th is having you rush through things, you don't want to be rushing through getting jobs done. You don't want to be rushing in your car. You don't want to be rushing and looking through a contract and overlooking something and then signing it, right? There can be issues in these regards. If you're dealing with legal documents, okay, you need to take your time and look through it. If things don't make sense, if you don't understand, you need to hire somebody or ask somebody to help you with it. So take your time and be mindful that because you are Mars, right? You're Mars and Pluto. This could also be some kind of conflict that you have with a neighbor about a neighbor's pet being in your yard. You can get a phone call from your doctor and argue about the results. You could have a squabble with a sibling, right? Something like that can happen. We want to diffuse it if at all possible, try to calm things down and know that whatever it is, I think it also has to do possibly with just learning how to communicate in a way that's not as intense, right? Especially when you're stressed out and you need help. It's about learning to ask for help. The card that I get for you is the Death card, of course. This is like, don't fight it. Don't resist, right? It's important not to resist. You really, 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 really want to hear me on this. This is your card, Scorpio. This is about letting things go. What do you have to let go of? You know, South Node's in your sign. It's about letting go of the need for everything to be perfect, for things to not be messy, for you not to deal with emotions. This is all kind of part of the human experience. Unfortunately, you have to deal with these things. And sometimes that requires us to let go of toxic behavior or angry ways of communicating. Likely, you're really afraid to make these changes. Maybe you're afraid to stop eating something. Maybe you're afraid to start a new job. Maybe you're afraid to start a new routine. And those negative thought patterns are kind of getting you down, right? So the Death card is saying, like, listen, we got to put an end to something so that way something new can begin. So I think this is actually Pluto in your 3rd, where it's negative thought patterns, negative communication that's hindering and keeping you from being able to start these new cycles and these new patterns. Mars and Jupiter are in your 6th. So you want healthier habits. You want healthier routines. You want to be feeling like you're not getting short and snippy with people and taking better care of your mental health, okay? All right, so now we've got Sag and Sag rising. Welcome to June 2022. Hopefully you're doing well. Well, the month kicks off with Mercury going direct in your 7th house. I bet it's been a little wild for you. Lots of miscommunications, possibly with relationships. and trying to reconcile and figure out who you're going to hold on to and who you're going to let go. Now, because this has been opposing your sign, it's not just been about communicating, but also listening. There can be a sense of you getting triggered and like dealing with old relationship patterns resurfacing. Certainly people from the past could have come back. I mean, you name it, across the board, all of these things have kind of gone on. But the Mercury retrograde actually started in Gemini and then it dropped into your 6th. So it makes me wonder, is it also about, is it time to put to rest old relationship issues? Is it time to really call it quits with certain people? Are you communicating well with people at work? Are you having issues with coworkers? That stuff could have kind of come up for you, especially because Mercury also is the ruler of your 10th house. So it's about schedules and what you're doing at work and whether or not you hire employees, that kind of stuff. Now, when Mercury goes direct, it is going to be actually in Taurus, so it'll be in your 6th. So it's given you an opportunity to rework schedules, rework health issues. If you needed to go and see a doctor or get tests, or if you've been kind of trying to heal and recover from an injury, I could see that being a theme that's going on as well. Schedules are going to stabilize, health and diet stuff is going to stabilize, and relationship issues can kind of get a little bit easier and worked out sometime around the 3rd as Mercury ends his retrograde. Then on the 4th of the month, we're going to see Saturn turn retrograde in the sign of Aquarius. Now, this is going to be happening for you in your natal 3rd house. In many ways, this is like reflecting on all the work you've been doing, recently over the last couple of months. Some of you guys have been really focusing on like mind over matter. A lot of you guys have also been working a lot on journaling, mental health. Some of you guys have been focusing on just communicating better, learning how to express yourself more, completing programs. Also, if you've had issues with vehicles, this might get a little bit easier as well. But when Saturn stations and it goes direct later this year, I think that it's gonna be a little bit more intense. And so one thing that I would say for you just to keep in mind is that some issues that you've been having, either with psychological trauma, patterns, habits, addictions, self-undoing, or health problems can kind of come back, and realize that a lot of this is getting your mental health right, so that way you're not feeling like you're falling victim to some of these issues. So don't drop the ball, continue with breathing exercises, going on walks, anything that can kind of help you kind of stay even keeled when it comes to your mental health. On the 11th of the month, Venus is going to come into a conjunction with Uranus. Now, this is happening in your natal 6th house. This makes me feel like there is a new diet, a strange and unusual health or fitness routine that you start. Maybe you make the decision that you want to integrate new food into your diet. Maybe you are adding some new weird or wacky kind of art to the workplace. There can be a sense also of just like sudden relationship stuff coming out of the blue that you didn't see coming. The 6th is the 12th to the 7th. So if there are going to be fallouts in relationships, calling it quits, clearing somebody out, I'm imagining it would be between the 11th and the 18th. Now, like I said, old ghosts from relationship past can come up too. Sometimes we just continue to date the same person, just in different bodies. So it doesn't mean that you're with somebody from the past. You can be feeling like you're getting triggered because some of the same problems are coming back up again in a new relationship as well. I also see that on the 16th, Venus will then conjunct the North Node, and you're realizing like what you need for health and wellness and stability. There is this realization of also like friends kind of jumping in to kind of help you. I would say if you have pets, you want to pay attention to your pets this month, this whole week actually, from the 11th through the 18th, because there can be sudden trips to the vet or needing to make dietary changes or medical stuff that can be going on with a pet as well. Good thing that you have friends that are willing to jump in and to assist you though, even if it is stressful and it causes some issues with your schedule. On the 18th of the month, we're going to see Venus come into a square with Saturn. Now, Venus is still hanging out in your natal 6th house. It's squaring Saturn in the 3rd. To me, it feels like just like an agitating day where you're like, I have this extra expense for a vehicle or for a pet that I didn't see coming. Suddenly, having to go on a road trip and then trying to figure out somebody who can water your plants, watch your dog. Some of you guys are also probably experiencing like frustrations and delays with moving. So if you're moving, it's like, okay, not totally thrilled that I'm having to spend more than I anticipated. Maybe you got into a space and then realized it needed a little bit more work and it wasn't totally ready to go, and you're like, ugh, this is a drag. So you're going to get a little agitated by that, but once you get out of the 11th through the 8th, that energy is going to break, and I feel like you're going to kind of see that scale back. Now then on the 20th of the month, we see Mercury in the sign of Gemini coming into a sextile with Jupiter. So Mercury's back in your relationship house. It's sextiling Jupiter in your 5th. There's lots of positive talk. Hey, let's go and have some fun. Let's go out for a date night with a partner. Possibly there's good news coming from a partner about a creative project. You may be talking to another person about your feelings, saying I love you, falling in love, or possibly talking about a more serious union or having a child because you've got Jupiter in your 5th house. I think with Mars being there too, there's just this emphasis on like having a good time, and it's going to keep reminding you that even if there are schedule conflictions and there's things that are going on this month that kind of get you down, that it's important to still go out and have fun and spend time with somebody who can kind of cheer you up. Then on the 27th of the month, we are going to see that Mars and Aries in your 5th house comes into a sextile with Saturn in your 3rd. So there is a way to kind of blow off steam and have some fun, maybe getting out of town for the weekend. Maybe you have like a really insightful kind of like brainstorm session with somebody for like an online business. Maybe a sibling or a neighbor kind of calls you and you catch up and you end up kind of feeling like you're in better spirits. But I also feel like there is some support if there has been movement. I kind of feel like Saturn in the 3rd is, for some of you guys, moving or finding a place, and like you have the help of a loved one or somebody who can help you come in and like decorate. What I would watch out for is going to be on the 30th of June through the 2nd of July. And this is when Mars in your 5th house comes into a square with Pluto in your 2nd. So there can be a sense of overdoing it. There can be a sense of overspending. There can be a sense of over partying, and something that really breaks the bank. So if you're buying a bunch of art, if you're going out and having too much of a good time, you're going to get the bill and go, oh, I can't believe I spent so much money, or I can't be, spending so much money on food, drink, or recreation. Once you kind of get that bill or that receipt, you're going to be having second thoughts about what you invested into that good time. All right, probably blowing off a little too much steam is kind of the feeling that I'm getting. But you live and you learn, Sag. You live and you learn. All these energies with Mars and Jupiter is like, I want to have fun. I want to have fun now. And it's in your 5th house. All right, so we've got King of Swords coming up. So this tells me communication comes fast, and there is a need to really own your words and what you're thinking and what you have to say. What I love about the King of Swords is like he's very direct. So it's like if he says something, that's what goes, that's what sticks. It's not going to come undone. It's sticking to your guns and really being adamant about your thoughts and your ideas, getting the point across. You see, I really love some of the sextiles that are going on between your 3rd and your 5th, because it's like, I love this. I'm committing to this, and telling people I love you, telling people about your creative projects, really expanding possibly an online business or just communication in general, so you can focus more on what you do love and start to really feel like you're having a lot more mental clarity. Now, air signs can show up. So Geminis, also Libras or Aquariuses can come into your life that can kind of help you with this process. So sometimes it's somebody who you have a conversation with that kind of gets your mind right and sets everything in motion, so you're feeling more in control and manifesting things in a powerful way, not in a way that is connected to fear, All right, so now we've got Capricorn and Capricorn rising. Welcome to June 2022. Hope you're doing well. Oh boy. So we've got Mercury going direct. That's happening for you on the 3rd. It's happening in your 5th house. So romantic people from the past could come back. You could be having miscommunications with children. There can be a sense of you like not knowing what you want when it comes to dating, and maybe you're reworking a creative project. I, for one, have loved this retrograde because of the aspects it's made to Pluto. So when Mercury's turning retrograde in your 5th house, trining Pluto in your sign, it's about what do you love and what do you believe about love and what do you believe about children? Do you feel like you have the power to open your heart and yourself up to new love? Are you willing to overcome childhood trauma issues? Are you willing to unleash your inner artist? Any of these things could happen. the fact that it's going to go direct in your sign, I think is wonderful. Really powerful conversations that are giving you the opportunity to have heart-opening experiences really the first week of June. Then on the 4th of the month, Saturn turns retrograde, and it's going to be turning retrograde in Aquarius in your second house. So, you know, maybe you've been feeling like it's been more challenging to bring resources in. Maybe you've been feeling a little tighter on money. Maybe you've been working really hard to build up your self-esteem and not associate your value with what you have or how much money you have in the bank. I feel personally like when Saturn turns retrograde, it's going to be easier. Like you're going to feel that let up. But he still wants you to stay on task with your budgeting. He doesn't want you to spend a bunch of excess money, okay? Saturn is your chart ruler. So you can't be going out, spending a ton of money on food, a ton of money socializing. There is a need for you to really still stay on task and focusing on developing your own natural sense of talents. Don't drop the ball here, because I'm going to tell you, as Saturn comes into a square with Uranus later this year, I am seeing more financial challenges and economic issues and delays. Like, keep saving that money, even if you feel like the pressure lets up. On the 11th of the month, Venus comes into conjunction with Uranus, and that's in your 5th house. This makes me feel like you can fall in love with a younger person. It can be a wild week for dating, meeting somebody at a bar. Creative projects can really kind of go into overdrive. Venus does rule not just your 5th house, it also rules your 10th. So it makes me feel like it has to do with love in the workplace, love with a younger person, chance meetings, stuff in regards to children. Then on the 16th, Venus is going to come into a conjunction with the North Node. So anything in regards to loving, nurturing, caring for your investments, for your children, for younger people. It's the love that you give. So there's this real emphasis on romance and connecting with people, giving flowers and sweets and presents and all these things, right? Then on the 18th of the month, you want to watch, because Venus is going to come into a square with Saturn. Saturn is the ruler of your chart, and remember, Saturn's in the 2nd. So this is about not going over budget with big fancy dinners, trying to impress somebody, really expensive bouquets, jewelry. You know, you don't want to like break the bank. You might feel like you got a gift for somebody and they were like, oh, what is this? Like, what brand is this? Like, I don't know if I like this because it's not designer or it's not good enough, right? So that square to Saturn is like, oh, you know, I made them this thing, or I got them this thing and I did the best that I could, or I thought they would really like it. I liked it. And you can kind of get your feelings hurt because you might give a gift or receive something that just the values clash, right? So it's about giving and receiving. Then on the 20th of the month, we're going to see Mercury and Gemini come into a sextile with Jupiter in Aries. So Mercury is hanging out right now, back in the sign of Gemini. It is in your 6th house, which deals with health, your wellness, your daily routine, pets, coworkers, and it's going to sextile Jupiter in Aries. It makes me feel like similar kind of to Scorpio, getting some stuff organized in regards to your home or your health. Now, Mercury is more like systems and stuff in regards to your schedule. So maybe you're rearranging your schedule. Maybe you're changing jobs. Maybe you're going back to work. Maybe you're working in a new office. Maybe you need to clean or organize your office. And then Jupiter's in your 4th. So maybe you're transitioning from not working for a period of time and going back, or maybe you're transitioning from working at home and then going back into an office. So there's some shift there. There might be changes in your schedule. They're positive, they're quick, they're optimistic. I would say that Jupiter in your 4th is kind of insinuating that there's new things happening in the family, or expanding your home, or moving to a new place, or renovating something, or having a child. And it's like, oh my gosh, you know, like, how do we work all this into the schedule? And it's like, it's good changes. You know, these are growing problems. Then on the 27th of the month, we see Mars in Aries, sextile Saturn in Aquarius. So this is cool because we start to kind of really reap the benefits of where we were making those kind of scale backs with Saturn. And obviously Mars is hanging out in your natal 4th house, and it's sextiling Saturn in the 2nd. So I feel like maybe you have been scaling back on expenses because you know you're moving, or you know that you need to buy new furniture. Maybe that plays out to your favor. So because you were kind of being a little bit more conservative early in the month, not spending a ton of money going out and partying, or maybe you're just trying to be more focused and more reserved and cautious with your financial handlings or even your investments, it pays off, because then when you see the sextile between Mars and Saturn, there's this feeling that's like, okay, you know what? Actually, I've got the savings. I've got the capability of being able to do this. I've saved the money for the down payment. I've got the money for the deposit. I've got the support that I need from my family to be able to actually see things through, especially when it comes to investments, land, and also your home or your domestic zone. Then on the 30th of June through the 2nd of July, you're going to see Mars in Aries come into a square with Pluto in your sign, Capricorn. So this is something you want to watch out for. While the Mars sextile Saturn is good, it's like, I almost wonder if this is you telling family, like, I can't expense this anymore. Like, I can't pay for this. I can't cover this. Like, you need to pay your own rent, or you need to pay your own way, or you need to chip in. Then, just a couple days later, we're going to see, Mars come into a square with Pluto. So you're changing and transforming your relationship that you have with family members. You might get frustrated. You might get a little aggravated. Family members can get aggravated with you because you're changing and you're transforming. And maybe you're like, no, I'm not going to let people take advantage of me like that. You want to watch for temper flare-ups, because I get the impression like when family challenge you, or roommates or people that you live with challenge you, or anybody around your home, you're going to get really explosive and reactionary, and you can get very territorial. So just be mindful of that. Don't let people kind of get your goat. When Mars is in your 4th house, the best thing you can do is like literally be packing, moving things around, rearranging furniture, getting work done around. Especially if you're frustrated, go and find something to work on within the house so you can diffuse some of that energy. Okay? All right, so let's see what card we get for you. 2 of Coins. So this is like weighing your options, going back and forth. Do I do this? Do I do that? Feeling overwhelmed, feeling a little bombarded, lots of responsibility, trying to move money around, trying to be smart with money. Possibly there's like a situation playing out where you're like, you know what? I have to delay this so I can pay that, or I put a little money here and I do that. It's being smart and resourceful so that way you can make the most of your money and feel like you can handle everything at the same time. But it feels overwhelming. It feels like you've got too many irons in the fire, and that there may be too many expenses coming up at one time, so you can't handle everything, right? That's the case with these squares. These squares are financial. So if you're trying to figure out how you can, help pay somebody in the family's bills or get them resources while you're paying your own, you might have to make some difficult decisions because you can't do everything at the same time. You're busy, you're juggling things. Good luck. Now we've got Aquarius and Aquarius rising. Hope you're doing well. Boy, oh boy. Well, Mercury goes direct. It's going direct on the 3rd, and it's going to be going direct in your natal 4th house. So if you've been experiencing issues with communicating with family, if you've been experiencing issues with delays in moving, signing leases, somebody delaying getting out of your house, somebody's moved back home for a period of time, if there's just been this sense of getting stuck in the past, or feeling stuck in your house, or not knowing how to communicate or express yourself, there's been issues communicating with children because Mercury rules your 5th. This is going to clear up as soon as the time that Mercury goes direct. Give it about a week, maybe 10 days for the shadow to shake out. Then on the 4th, we're going to see Saturn go retrograde in your sign. This is important because it's in your personal sign and Saturn is your chart ruler. So Saturn going retrograde in the 1st is like reflecting on where you've been too stern, where you have issued new boundaries, where you've set new goals for yourself, where you've started new things. And I think that it's also about reflecting on where you have been not either fully there or fully checked in, or there has been a sense of you kind of like keeping yourself away from people or like hiding out, because Saturn also rules your 12th. Now, it's not a time to ease back at all. I think that if you experience positive results in the weeks ahead, it's because you've set new goals for yourself and you've had new boundaries with people, which I know has not been challenging, especially because a lot of these boundaries have been with loved ones, family members, things like that, because you've had that square to Uranus and Taurus in your 4th. Now, on the 11th of the month, we're going to see that Venus is going to come into conjunction with Uranus, and it's in your 4th house. So this can be from the 11th through the 18th a little tumultuous. I'm not going to lie. You're in the hot zone because you're a fixed sign. with Venus conjunct Uranus in the 4th is like a sudden change in the home or the family. It can be suddenly somebody decides that they're moving out. It could be suddenly that somebody decides that they're moving further away. There can be some out of the blue inheritance or some out of the blue change in regards to your home life. You come home and you find out that, you know, your husband got rid of your favorite couch, you know, something like that, or painted the wall a color that you really didn't like. I would advise you the 16th through the 18th, like purchasing property, making huge changes in the home, making big upgrades. Like they may not come out the way that you like them to, so just be careful. But for the most part, I think the Venus-Uranus conjunction, you know, it's interesting because it can be about developing connections to your past, or maybe like family members who you haven't seen for some time, kind of reconnecting with them. So that's the positive side of the transit. On the 16th of the month, Venus conjuncts the North Node in the 4th, and you start to really kind of put the pieces together and figure out, what do I value at home? What do I need to feel comfortable and secure? What new items do I want in the home? Am I looking at an unusual property? Am I considering living there? Is it like a communal style? Am I looking at land where we can, you know, build multiple houses? That can happen. And then on the 18th, you're going to see Venus come into a square with Saturn. So Venus is in your 4th. It's squaring Saturn in your 1st house. So family's like, why don't you move back home? And you're like, I need my independence. Or maybe you're trying to do something nice for your family and you get a little blowback. And, you know, the family's like, no, we're not interested. It's just really confrontational because of the square with Saturn in your sign, that it makes me feel like no matter what you do, you're being forced to be more independent. And even if you live with other people, even if you've got family around you, there is going to be a sense of you feeling like you need your own space, and you might experience that pushback and feel like rejected. So don't feel rejected. Just know that it's basically the kind of craziness that's happening in your home life is either A, trying to give you a new boundary, or B, it's trying to give you your own space. So if family's coming in and out of your life, if you're moving out of a space, if a partner's leaving your life or your house, these things are happening because Saturn wants you to have more independence, okay? On the 20th of the month, Mercury in Gemini comes into a sextile with Jupiter in Aries. And this is cool because Mercury is hanging out in your 5th house of children, dating, creativity, playtime, and it's sextiling Jupiter in the 3rd. So it's like, you know what? I have this free time. I'm going to go on a road trip. I'm getting out of town for a weekend. I'm going to take this new course. I'm going to take this new creative workshop. I'm going to go and place a phone call to one of my kids and see if they want to hang out. There can be a sense of like new people that you're socializing and interacting with dating wise. Good news, right? It's just good news. I mean, I think that it's possible that you're getting good news from your children. It can be news about children, babies being born, people being pregnant, stuff like that. On the 27th of the month, you're going to see Mars in Aries come into a sextile with Saturn in your sign. So Mars is in the 3rd, really busy, running around. You're having to drive around the neighborhood. You're having to focus on communication, phone calls, meetings, things like that. And because it's sextiling Saturn in your sign, there's a lot of like walking the walk and talking the talk. If you're telling people about your goals, if you're telling people what you're working on, if you're telling people what you're focused on, you're going to actually start seeing it materialize. And it's going to be really cool to see this happen because you're going to reflect back on the last month or two and you're going to go, I'm so glad I held myself to that standard. I'm so glad I, didn't budge when it came to what I was planning or my goals in general. Now I'm really seeing it kind of come together full circle. So wonderful day to just really feel good about yourself and be reminding yourself that you've made the right decisions. And then last but not least, we have on June 30th through July 2nd, we're going to have Mars in Aries, and that's in your 3rd house, come into a square with Pluto in Capricorn in your 12th. What can I say about this? I feel like it's about not letting fear bombard you and get in the way. I think it's also going to be about, learning not to get too aggressive in communication, like not to let fear be the driving force for you being aggressive during a conversation, or demanding that somebody call you back, or trying to force a contract because you're trying to meet a certain timeline and you're afraid that something might not pan out. This can be about letting go of negative thoughts and not getting caught up in the worst case scenario. So you really want to watch for that, Aquarius. Don't let that happen. Remember that Saturn's got your back. You know, he's really helping you focus on moving forward and really allowing yourself to communicate in a way where you're more focused on yourself than you are with other people, okay? The card that I got for you is the Three of Wands. So this is about moving forward, new adventures, being excited about getting going. Even if you don't know where you're going to end up yet, this might be about traveling. It might be about being more curious about new areas. It can also be about traveling to places you haven't been before, which I could see with the energy that you have in Aquarius and also Aries. But it's also being more optimistic and feeling like you're willing to rise to the occasion and take on new tasks and go into uncharted territory. So it's creative, it's active, it's fun, and you don't really know where you're going to end up, but you know that it's going to be an adventure. And last but not least, I've got here Pisces and Pisces rising. How's it going, Pisces? So the month kicks off with Mercury going direct, and that's going to be on the 3rd. It's in your 3rd house. So it's really significant because, you know, Mercury has like a connection to the 3rd house. So it's about sticking to your financial plans, what you've been learning when it comes to your finances and your resources, whether or not it's a good idea for you to consider planning financially for a move, or investing in something new, or writing something, or a course maybe that you could sell, investing in a course that you could take, or making a new shift in regards to a vehicle. Now, when Mercury goes direct, it's going to be so much easier for you to sign a lease, buy a car, do all these things. Wait for the shadow to take about a week or so for it to shake out. But somewhere around the 3rd week of June, things get a little bit easier. Then on the 4th of the month, Saturn turns retrograde, and that's going to be in Aquarius in your 12th house. Well, it might feel like you've been hiding out. You might have felt like a little bit of an outsider, that you have spent more time alone, that you've been falling out of touch with some of your friends. Maybe you've been focusing more on meditation. You know, that's what Saturn in the 12th has a tendency to do. There's also a need for you to like reflect on your life and what you're willing to kind of let go of, or what patterns are ending for you. For many of you guys, it's like old goals are ending, old friendships are ending, and it has you kind of in your feels a little bit. So I think it can be easier to feel like you can connect with people when when Saturn ends its retrograde. But I also feel like you don't want to get too lost in that, because there is definitely going to be like a shift and a segue later in the year where you feel like you need to retreat a little bit more again. So I would tell you the same thing I said to all the signs. Just because Saturn is retrograde, it doesn't mean that we stop working. So you're still going to have to do the work when it comes to wrapping up friendships, when it comes to working behind the scenes, when it comes to focusing on your meditation and consciously taking time to be on your own, and letting certain relationships or friendships go if they need to go. Now, on the 11th of the month, we're going to see that Venus in Taurus comes into conjunction with Uranus in Taurus, and that's happening in your 3rd house. So this is interesting because I think that it's going to possibly allow you to meet somebody unusual. Could be online. You could meet them while you're out driving about or just walking around the neighborhood. You might take up like a new book or an audiobook or something that you like listening to. There can be like a new hobby that you're learning about possibly, or wanting to kind of take a course on. I think the one thing that kind of comes up for me is just maybe you're learning more about money and investments and finance, and maybe you're taking an interest in learning about cryptocurrency, or you're listening to like a finance podcast or an astrology podcast. That could be something else that you're learning more about. Now on the 16th, Venus will then conjunct the North Node in the same house. And so it's really reiterating like whatever the sudden change is, settle into that. How does that feel? Do you understand the language? Do you like it? Does it feel good? All of those things with Venus on the North Node. Now, for you personally, because Venus has a really strong connection, not just to Taurus, but also to Libra, there is this feeling like it's about making time for something. It can also be about being of service, and it can also be about learning about healthier relationships, health, or fitness. Then on the 18th, Venus will square Saturn. So Saturn's in your 12th house. So there's this feeling of like, do I have time for this? I think a lot of people are going to have that experience. Do I have time for this? But Venus in the third is like, no, I want to make time for this course. I want to sit down and make more of an effort to read. Perhaps reading becomes part of your meditation practice. Maybe there's a book that you read for 15 minutes a day, and then you meditate and reflect on that. Something in regards to just mindfulness and making the time to learn or integrate that as a part of your daily routine, and needing to make sacrifices in your daily routine so you have that quiet time. You can get a little anxious also about whether or not people are responding to you or getting back to you in a timely manner, so be mindful of that as well. Then on the 20th of the month, Mercury in Gemini comes into a sextile with Jupiter in Aries. So Mercury is hanging out. It's in your 4th house, talking to family, being more active with family. Certainly there's been a lot of stuff going on there at the Mercury retrograde. Perhaps there was like an issue with an aunt, uncle, or a sibling, and you had to either go back home, be with family, or they were calling you because of some kind of issue. You could have had issues with roommates as well and be debating whether or not you're going to move. But I think with Mercury now direct and it's sextiling Jupiter, you're seeing possibly like there's a new living situation that's opening up for you. Maybe you have a little bit more money flowing, so you feel like you could afford a bigger space. Maybe you're focusing on making more money so you can save more money to maybe buy or just get into something bigger or nicer. Regardless, the relationship between the two is positive. So Jupiter is carrying the energy of whatever news is coming from Mercury. So there can be good money news within the family. There can be a business or a big real estate transaction that's happening that can positively affect you as well and help you expand both of those areas of your life. Definitely more money coming in for you with the Mars-Jupiter conjunction. So I wonder if you're like, okay, I'm going to put it into a home, or I'm going to move, or I'm going to renovate my house. Then on the 27th, we see Mars and Aries come into a sextile with Saturn in Aquarius. So Mars is in your 2nd house. It's sextiling Saturn in your 12th. I think a lot of the things that manifest are things that you've been reflecting and meditating on. I think you've been reflecting and meditating on your values and your resources and what it means to feel abundant. And that when you calm your mind and you let everything kind of fall into place, it can come to you very easily. It's just a matter of just really focusing on kind of getting into the zone of like letting things flow. It can be really difficult when you're doing the Saturn transits, but I think you're going to see that time and reflection and dedication and commitment and your beliefs are really physically starting to pan out, and you're feeling like the changes that you've been making emotionally, psychologically, or spiritually is helping you feel better grounded and more abundant. And then finally, on the 30th of the month through the 2nd of July, you're going to be seeing Mars in Aries in your 2nd house coming into a square with Pluto in Capricorn. Well, friends and money don't mix. There can also be this sense of like jealousy or possessiveness in regards to friends demanding that you pay them back for something, you loaning something to someone and them not giving it back, and there being a power struggle over that. There can be a power struggle over possessiveness of friends as well. So Pluto in the 11th house definitely gets you really passionate about your goals, but it can definitely show you where there's some toxic friendships, especially when, petty things come up in regards to finances, and that there's a little bit of a squabble over values and what somebody values versus the other person. So you want to watch for that. There can definitely be some friction. Be very careful with somebody who's pressuring you into a financial situation or invading your privacy in regards to your finances in any capacity. Friends may possibly try to take advantage of that, or maybe jealous of some newfound kind of financial success that you've been having, and you can find that it just doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good to have somebody who's not celebrating your accomplishments. Instead, they can be like negative Nancy, or they can be a little jealous that things are going your way. So watch out for that. The card that I got for you is the Empress. Wonderful card, talking about love, talking about health, wellness, investing in yourself. It can be really great for artists, mothers, anybody who's trying to like launch new projects. If you're really working with the energy of Venus, if you're trying to speak more sweetly, I think of that North Node in your 3rd house and the Venus and the Uranus transits, and that maybe it's about writing music, writing poetry, journaling, creative writing, anything that's going to help you feel like you're tuning into Venus and you're speaking and you're communicating more sweetly. This can be about your mother or motherhood, or talking about that as well. But I feel like specifically this is more, I think, communicating about what you love and what you value, and finding ways to be able to share that, but also embody that more on a regular basis. hopefully it's a good month for everybody. I'm excited to see what plays out. I've been saying for many months that it wasn't going to be really until June of 2022 that we're going to feel like things are moving forward. So you guys should be feeling these energies now. You will look back on June and July of 2022 and you're going to go, that's when the story changed. That's when things sped up. The momentum sped up. We starting to see forward motion. We were really focused on committing to our goals and our desires. And we're planting seeds right now, literally the next like 2 weeks, that are laying the groundwork for where we're going into the future. Okay. Not just this year, but the next couple of years. So let me know, did this resonate with you? You can come back to this also throughout the month and see how it panned out. Obviously, these are general predictions, but if you're listening to your ascendant, it's going to hit home a little bit more. If you would like to book a session with me, if you like my reading style, check out my links below. Check out my website at beyondtheveiledtarot.com. Would love to see you. I am booking right now in July and August. I'm very busy. I've got a lot of stuff going on. We'll be teaching a tarot course soon. So if you have not already joined my newsletter, check out my newsletter. It pops up when you go to my website. I'm not going to spam you. You're only going to get an email when I'm like, hey, sign up for my tarot course. We just got done, finished last month doing Astrology 101. We're going to be doing Astrology 201 in the fall. And I just started putting together all of my new dates for the calendar for the rest of 2022 because I'm going to be teaching webinars as well. So I'm just waiting until I have some Mercury-Saturn transit so I feel like I can really commit to these dates. But in the next month, look out for that as well. I'll be sending that in my newsletter. So if you would like to participate in any of these new courses that I'm going to be doing, if you would like to join me for my webinars, you can do so then. Otherwise, I'm sure I'll see all of you very soon. Enjoy the month of June. I hope it's good, and you guys take care.